Chapter 527. After watching Yin Nuoxing and the others leave the hall, the mountain's sovereign emperor smiled inexplicably. With a wave of his hand, he put away the cups on the table and took out 6 more teacups. He took out a soul crystal and brewed a pot of strong tea. After pouring the tea into the 6 teacups, he took a sip from one of the teacups and heaved a sigh of relief. What do you think of these children? The mountain's sovereign emperor suddenly laughed and rubbed his fingers on the stone table, as if he was talking to himself. However, just as he finished speaking, the door to the passageway was pushed open again. Soon after, 5 people walked in slowly and sat beside the mountain's sovereign emperor. They took a sip from their teacups and heaved a long sigh of relief. If Yin Nuoxing and the others were still here, they would see that the 5 people who just walked in were the people on the 5 statues. I think they're pretty good. Those 9 children are from the 9 sacred halls, right? And those 4 should be from the Moron clan. Their auras are a little similar. The 2 little girls are very suitable for cultivating the fairy power. The little guy from the Yuan clan is pretty good too. The little guy with purple hair barely qualifies. He's about there. You're just short of teaching him everything you know. Not bad. You're a hypocrite. The 5 people looked at this guy with disdain. Don't say that. The 4 of you aren't any better. I took a liking to him first, but you've already taught him half of what you've learned in your lifetime. Huh? Are you trying to snatch him from me? That person was choked and retorted fiercely. Everyone appreciates talent. Old F.A., calm down. The mountain's sovereign emperor couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Calm down. You Geoduck. The mountain's sovereign emperor took a sip of tea and rolled his eyes at the 5 people, causing them to laugh evilly. The beautiful and holy woman curled her lips into a smile that could bring chaos to the world. She couldn't help but chuckle and say, "That little guy might be my junior brother." Uffed. Old witch, who are you talking about? Spiritual, godly body? The mountain's sovereign emperor couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of tea and glare at her. Heavenly God, Glaze's inheritance? The great emperor of the colored Glaze's inheritance came from that high and mighty god. It was a very secretive force in the myriad god world. It was passed down by the colored Glaze god. However, this force had always been hidden in the dark. Even those who weren't at their level wouldn't know of its existence. I can feel the fluctuations of the Glaze treasure mirror, and it's even more complete than mine. However, I don't think that little fellow has mastered it yet. Maybe it's because he doesn't have the Glaze divine crystal. The beautiful woman smiled, her face filled with gratification. She was extremely happy to be able to see her junior brother. What? You want to help him? A strange smile appeared on Emperor Wanfa's face as he stroked his mustache. There was a smug look in his eyes. You guessed it right. It's rare to meet such an outstanding junior brother, and he's also so cute. How can I not give him a push? Back then, Master had said that we must unite and help each other. The beautiful woman's smile was extremely stunning as she nodded. Liuli, don't tell me you've taken a fancy to that brat. A man with a long saber on his back couldn't help but tease her. Even if I'm not 20 million years old, I'm at least 18 million years old, right? What's in your head? The beautiful woman glared at him and couldn't help but kick him into the water. After all, Soul Saber is almost 30 million years old. Mountain King laughed. Great Emperor Colored Glaze rolled her eyes at him. She took out a ring and placed it on the table. Then she said softly, "Mountain, give this to him." Mountain King raised his eyebrows and picked up the ring. He took a look at it with his consciousness and couldn't help but open his eyes wide. With a strange expression, he asked, "Colored Glaze, where did you get this glazed divine crystal that's as tall as a mountain?" Of course it's... The Empress covered her mouth and chuckled. Before she could finish her sentence, there was an ear-piercing shriek. "D*MN. I searched the entire world for the glazed divine crystal, and you just gave it to that brat." The young man with a row of comb-like bangs stood up abruptly and couldn't help but shout. "You gave him the art of annihilation and the great formation of annihilation. Don't F***king compare." The 4 of them roared. Emperor of Annihilation curled up in his chair and trembled. He looked at them innocently. The Glazed Divine Court has very few people. Even in the entire realm of the gods, There are only 50 of them. That's even fewer than the Temple of Light. No matter what, I have to take care of this cute little junior. The Empress took the ring and gently stroked it with her slender fingers. She couldn't help but sigh. Do you think he can refine the glazed divine crystal? Back then, when you asked us to help you refine the glazed divine crystal, it took the 6 of us a total of 20 years to help you cultivate the glazed mirror to the second stage. The mountain sovereign couldn't help but say, I think so. The Empress paused for a moment. Then, she couldn't help but cough dryly. That brat has 2 types of divine flames. I should be able to refine it if I borrow it. Wait, what did you say? 2 types. 2 types of divine flames. You're not joking, are you, Old Witch? Emperor of Annihilation was immediately energized. If you call me Old Witch again, I'll slap you to death. Black lines appeared on the Empress' forehead. She raised her hand and was about to slap them. What? You want to refine something? Mountain King looked at him with a smile. Of course. Divine flames. Divine weapons for refining. I've been looking for them my entire life, but I haven't found even one. Why is that brat breaking the rules? Wouldn't it be great if he could just give me one? I'd even go bankrupt and buy it. Emperor of Annihilation said viciously. Divine flames? I'd like to borrow them too. Soul Saber Emperor crawled out of the water, leaving a trail of water behind him. His eyes lit up when he heard this. Refined medicine? The Empress rolled her eyes. Yes, yes, yes. Soul Saber Emperor nodded vigorously. I know what went wrong the last time I refined the immortal grade pill. That's right, I need divine flames. With so many god emperors appearing together, are you trying to scare my little junior brother to death? The female empress shook her head helplessly. Emperor Myriad Arts raised his hand. Scram, what do you need divine flames for? The Empress, Emperor of Annihilation, and Soul Saber Emperor roared in unison. The Empress's throat felt a little itchy from all the shouting. She elegantly drank a mouthful of tea and glanced at the white-haired old man who had been silent all this while. She couldn't help but say, Old Yuan, say something as well. Mountain King and the others turned to look at the white-haired old man. He was the last statue that Yin Nuashing had seen, the primordial devouring fate beast. Old Fate's eyebrows twitched, and he opened his eyes. His left eye was very strange. It was bluish-green, and there was a cross imprinted in it. Lapis Lazuli and the little guy are fated, and this fate was established a long time ago. Maybe it's because of the Lapis Lazuli. As for the 5 of us, the line of fate that was originally illusory has finally become real. The old man took a sip of tea, closed his left eye, and opened his right eye. The little guy's luck is unbelievable. What do you mean? Is my junior brother's luck bad? The Empress asked with a frown. No, his fate is very strong, and it was changed by someone. He was given a very strong fate, but I can't see how it was changed. Maybe the person who changed his fate. Old Fate paused and couldn't continue. I understand. You don't have to say any more. The Empress trembled and nodded quickly. Mountain King was also surprised. He believed that there were experts of that level in the God realm, but no one knew where they were. This kid has a lot of secrets. Mountain King couldn't help but laugh. What? Are you tempted? Do you want to rob him? Emperor Wanfa couldn't help but laugh. Why would I be so ungentlemanly? Besides, Old Fate also said that the child is a person with great luck. The demon realm is ready to make a move, and we still need these little guys to resist them. The great mountain monarch rolled his eyes. Is there a lack of experts in the god realm? There must be a lot of hell kings and hell emperors, and even god emperors. There shouldn't be a big problem. Soul Saber Emperor curled his lips. He had entered and left the demon world 7 times in the past, so he wasn't afraid of them. 25 million years ago, the demonic world had invaded once. However, that was just a small-scale invasion. This time around, it's hard to say. Do you guys still remember when the last Great War was? The Mountain King shook his head. 2 billion years ago. Old Fate said slowly. 2 billion years ago? That was at the end of the last era. Excluding the invasion 25 million years ago, how much power has the demon world accumulated this time? Mountain King couldn't help but sigh. The star of calamity shines, and the stars bow. In the future, there will be a violent storm that will sweep across the entire god realm. Old Fate looked at the dark sky and said, "When the star of calamity is stable, the god realm will be stable." Star of calamity? Old Fate, you said those words many years ago. Can't you be more precise? The great emperors were anxious. The star of calamity has appeared, and when the time comes. Old Fate shook his head and sighed. In the end, he didn't say it clearly. The great emperors couldn't help but want to slap him. He had been thinking about it for hundreds of thousands of years, but he still refused to say it. "I think you're just an old faker." Emperor Wanfa couldn't help but roll his eyes. "Looks like it's about to come out. I wonder how the other old fellows are doing." Mountain King smiled. His gaze seemed to pierce through space and see other places in the god realm. The 9 deity temples have all moved to the northern wilderness. Even the light temple has left. I wonder what big move they're making. Will the demon world invade the northern wilderness? The emperors couldn't help but mutter. The 9 deity temples are one of the protectors of the god realm. If the demon world invades, they won't just sit still. I wonder if the 9 deity temples have reached that level, Mountain King said. "Shao AI, didn't you say you were going to give the colored glass divine crystal to that little guy? I'll deliver it to you." Emperor of Destruction chuckled, his eyes glittering. "Scram, I'll give it to him myself. You 5 old things are unreliable." The Empress glared fiercely at this fellow. Then she kept the ring, snorted softly, and said, "I have a bold idea." The 5 of them looked at the stunning smile on her face and looked at each other. Then they laughed bitterly. This little guy was going to suffer. How would the pitiful Yin Nuo planet know that the moment they left, 6 god emperors would be discussing their matters behind them? Chapter 528. When everyone returned to the attic that they had been away from for a year, they were all a little absent-minded. A year had passed little by little in the midst of cultivation. It seemed that they had only opened and closed their eyes a few times. It was unbelievably fast. If I can become a god in the future, does it mean that each closed-door cultivation will last for thousands or even tens of thousands of years? Thinking of the closed-door cultivation of people at that level, Yuanshi couldn't help but sigh. However, he still found it hard to believe that the closed-door cultivation could last for thousands of years. He had never experienced it before, so he couldn't believe it. "I'm not sure if the closed-door cultivation will last for 10,000 years or 100,000 years. I only know that it will be a little troublesome for me to enter the door." Yin Nuoxing's face twitched. Under everyone's puzzled gaze, he smiled bitterly and pushed the door of the attic open with force. Walking into the hall, before Yuan Shi and the others could rush to the sofa, 2 messy footsteps suddenly sounded from the stairs, making Yin Nuoxing shudder violently. As soon as he turned his gaze, he saw a pink figure rushing over and flying into his arms. He was so anxious that he quickly reached out and hugged her. However, he was a little stunned. This size didn't seem to be right. "Xing Xing, you left me and Yishi here for a year. Where did you take everyone to play?" A coquettish voice sounded from his arms. The tone of the voice was a little unfamiliar, and it didn't have that childish feeling. Even Xian and the others were a little stunned when they heard it. Fallinger could speak clearly. Everyone turned their gazes in unison, and then Yin Nuoxing heard a few heavy sounds of chins hitting the floor. He smiled bitterly and lowered his head to take a look. This glance made him dizzy. At this moment, this seductive beauty with a devilish figure threw herself into his arms and buried her face in his chest had nothing to do with that lively 13-year-old girl. "Brother Nuo, you're back." On the stairs, Yishi smiled slightly when she saw Yin Nuoxing and the others return. However, Yin Nuoxing saw a trace of resentment in her large eyes, as if she was blaming him for running away without a word. "Next time, tell us when you go out." Feng has been muttering the stars are gone for half a year. Yishi walked to Yin Nuoxing's side and patted his arm. She couldn't help but sigh. "I thought I would be back soon. I never thought I would be gone for so long." Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly. He rubbed Yishi's little head and said, "I'll bring you along wherever I go in the future." That's more like it. Yishi raised her head, rolled her eyes at him, and snorted softly. Feng, this is? Yin Nuoxing patted her little head and smiled. She then looked at the tall beauty who was still hugging her tightly and couldn't help but ask. She muttered for half a year and turned into a cocoon once. After she came out, she became like this. Yishi shrugged. As she spoke, she couldn't help but shiver. She looked at Feng, with lingering fear. She thought about the past year. It was really unbearable to look back on the past. She was hugged like a doll, and her hair was played with foam. Yin Nuoxing patted the beauty's back and called out softly. The tenderness and doting in his voice caused Xian and the others to have goosebumps. Oh my, I'm not looking anymore. It's so sour, so boring. I'm going to cultivate. Yao Hua and the others shivered and directly walked upstairs. They all rolled their eyes at Yin Nuoxing. Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes back and lowered his head. His expression was a little strange. Why wasn't Feng saying anything? She fell asleep. She didn't rest or cultivate for a year. Instead, she cried for a year. Yishi shook Feng's long dress, then sighed softly and said, seeing that you're back, she should be relieved. She finally calmed down, like a baby who found her mother. Yin Nuoxing blinked and suddenly felt a little guilty. He rubbed Feng's head and sighed softly. He looked back at Xian, nodded, and carried Feng up. The three of them walked back to the room side by side. After settling the two of them, Yin Nuoxing wanted to change rooms, but he was stopped by Xian and Yishi. He was speechless. They should at least avoid the taboo. It's not like they didn't have a room to make do with when they were traveling. Brother Nuo, let me tell you. Someone may come to make trouble later. Yishi pulled Yin Nuoxing's sleeve and said, Make trouble? Yin Nuoxing frowned slightly. Yishi and Feng hadn't left the house for a year, and they had also been cultivating for a year. Why would someone come to make trouble? It is said that they are from the demon realm. They're from a big clan, and the people in this clan have the blood of the phoenix. They are a top force in the demon realm. In terms of status, they are similar to the temple. But although they have the blood of the phoenix, it is definitely not as thick as Feng's real phoenix god blood. It is the blood of a pure, godly beast, the same as the blood of a god spirit, Yishi said slowly. When Feng broke out of the cocoon last time, the fluctuating aura might have attracted those guys with fake phoenix blood. They want to take Feng back to the clan, but those people haven't done anything violent, so I can't chase them away directly. Yishi spread her hands. If they didn't do anything, she wouldn't do anything. If they did, she would have thrown a god-level magic array at them. She didn't care if they were a top force in the demon realm or something else, but they just didn't do anything. They just kept talking and persuading her. They had been talking for 3 months, and she was going crazy. She had chased them away countless times, but they just kept coming. They were so shameless. Did they know that Feng was a phoenix? Yin Nuoxing frowned. No, in this world, only the God King can recognize that she is a godly beast. Or maybe some people who have seen godly beasts before can recognize her. The others just think that Feng is a bird with very pure phoenix blood or a descendant. Yishi shook her head. She was no exception. If they hadn't been in the soul together for so long and seen her hatch, they wouldn't have recognized her either. Yin Nuoxing was silent for a while. He turned his head and looked softly at the sleeping Feng. He looked at her cute and charming face, and he couldn't help but stroke it. Those people will come again later. Brother Nuo, what do you plan to do? Yishi asked softly. Yin Nuoxing turned his gaze and looked out the window. He just smiled faintly and didn't say anything. Yishi understood when she saw this smile. She sat on the bed and stopped talking about this matter. She started to talk about other things with Yin Nuoxing. Yin Nuoxing wasn't good at dealing with people. He didn't have a sharp tongue. Most of the time, he just kept silent and intimidated people. Other than that, he didn't do anything else. However, if someone really wanted to negotiate or something, he would have to give it a try even if he wasn't good at it, especially when it was related to Feng. Yishi only hoped that those people wouldn't say anything. Yin Nuoxing was very peaceful when he was in a peaceful state. Once someone said something that hurt his heart or made him unhappy, he would draw his sword and kill them in the next second. Yin Nuoxing transmitted his voice to everyone. Then he sat on the edge of the bed and organized the things that he had learned in the past year. He didn't go far and sat beside Feng. He felt that if this girl woke up and saw that he wasn't around, she would panic. Not long after, the small hand that was held in the palm of his hand suddenly trembled. Feng Er's pair of beautiful crimson-pink eyes suddenly opened, and two rays of light that contained a terrifying pressure shot out from her eyes, causing Yun Nuo Xing and the others to be shocked. They quickly woke up, and their gazes focused as they saw Feng Er directly jump up from the bed. Xing Xing, those people are here again. Feng Er's brows furrowed slightly as she squeezed Yun Nuo Xing's hand tightly. She seemed a little unhappy. Yun Nuo Xing nodded. Just as he was about to comfort her, a gentle voice suddenly came from outside the loft. "Misty, do you have time for a chat?" The gentle voice made those who heard it feel like spring breeze. Although they didn't see the person, they could guess that this was a very beautiful person just by listening to this beautiful voice. However, when this voice fell into Yi Shi's ears, it made her so angry that she directly threw the blanket away. This old lady's 800,000 years of self-restraint have all been ruined in these 3 months. Yi Shi didn't care about anything else. She was almost hysterically roaring. Yin Nuoxing and Xian couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed when they saw her frantically rolling on the bed and kicking it. "Yaohua, Yuan Shi, Shuega, it's time to receive guests. Dress up a little more seriously," Yin Nuoxing said in the jade slip shared by the group. Then, he straightened his clothes, turned around, and walked downstairs while holding Feng Er's hand. Yi Shi angrily followed behind, and Xian also straightened his clothes before following them out. As soon as they went downstairs, Yin Nuoxing saw that Yuan Shi and the others were all dressed to the nines. They looked dignified and solemn. Moreover, they were all dressed very formally. Their clothes were covered up, and they were folded up. They looked like they were going on a blind date. Yin Nuoxing pulled Feng Er to sit on the main seat, and Xian sat on the side. Yi Shi looked at everyone very disdainfully. Then, she indifferently transmitted her voice to the outside. "Come in." As soon as she said that, a few figures walked in from the door. The person in the lead was wearing a phoenix robe. She was graceful and elegant, noble and holy. The people behind her all had a very noble aura. However, their heads were slightly raised. It was more like they were arrogant than noble. The person in the lead is a half-demon rank 7-cycle realm cultivator. The 4 men behind her are around the demon rank 7-cycle realm cultivator. There are also 2 old men who are God King level cultivators. Fortunately, they didn't use force. Yin Nuoxing slightly sensed and transmitted his voice to everyone. With his 6 paths of reincarnation technique, he could see through anyone's cultivation as long as they weren't at the divine underworld level or above. The woman led the way in. When she saw such a large group of people, and all of them had solemn expressions, she couldn't help but be startled. The men behind her also trembled slightly. Their arrogant auras were completely suppressed. The beautiful woman, Mei Mao, turned slightly. Relying on her bloodline, she immediately found Feng Er. However, when she saw Feng Er curled up beside Yin Nuoxing, she frowned slightly. "Friends from afar, have a seat." Yin Nuoxing didn't stand up. She just raised her arm and made a gesture of invitation, smiling faintly. The woman and the others frowned slightly. Putting on such a big show, was she trying to show off her power? However, when they sensed that there wasn't a single god here, they heaved a sigh of relief. It was good that there weren't any gods. They didn't stand on ceremony and directly sat opposite Yao Hua and the others. In the hall, more than 20 people were stuffed. The atmosphere was so heavy that it made people feel a little depressed. Let's get straight to the point, Miss Yi. Miss Feng has a more noble phoenix bloodline than our clan. She can receive better training in our clan. She can also receive the inheritance of our ancestors and receive the baptism of the holy altar to improve her bloodline. She will even be treated as a phoenix girl by our clansmen. These are all things that can't be done in the outside world. The inheritance ceremony left behind by our ancestors can only be done in the demon realm. The noble woman said calmly. Her gentle voice was convincing. Yuan Shi and the others nodded every time they heard her words. However, their expressions were still very solemn. Then what's the price? Yin Nuashing raised her eyebrows. She calmly took a sip of tea and asked calmly. The young men frowned. They wanted to scold her, but the woman stretched out her hand and stopped them. Then they heard her say, "Who is this young master?" "My brother, the decision-maker, and also Feng Er's parents," Yishi said calmly. Yin Nuashing almost spat out a mouthful of tea. What was this girl talking about? Why did it sound so strange? "Young master, since you are the one who raised Miss Feng, you naturally hope that she can receive better treatment. You are all humans. To be honest, if you don't have the means to raise a demon, it will limit her growth." The woman was halfway through her sentence when she saw Yin Nuashing waving her hand. "The price?" Yin Nuashing directly said. The woman frowned slightly and said, "If Miss Feng enters our clan, she will become a part of our clan and will be treated as a phoenix girl. She can even become an elder and make decisions about our clan's affairs. On the other hand, you will completely cut off Feng Er's connection with us. You will even brainwash her so that she will forget about us mortals and completely become one of your clansmen." As soon as she finished speaking, Yin Nuashing immediately spoke again, especially the word mortal, which was especially emphasized. Yin Nuashing sneered in her heart. How could there be such a good thing in the world? With Feng Er's current strength and bloodline, she would most likely be brainwashed and misled. Her mind was not very mature yet. If she left with them, she might not be able to recognize who he was in the future. That's right. If Miss Feng comes to our Sky Phoenix clan, she will not be able to leave. As for brainwashing, we will not do such despicable means. It is also her business whether she recognizes you or not," the woman said calmly without getting angry. Yin Nuashing smiled and sipped his tea. Then he said, "Let's put it this way. Although I'm Feng Er's boyfriend, when it comes to making decisions, my family is very democratic. Everything is decided by Feng. If she agrees, please treat her well. If she shakes her head," Yin Nuashing pointed at the door. "Then, Miss Feng, are you willing to come back to the Sky Phoenix clan with us?" The woman, Mei Mao, turned to Feng. A red light flashed in her eyes. Feeling her invasive gaze, Feng frowned slightly. Mei Mao looked at Yin Nuashing. The latter just smiled and rubbed her head. She said, "Feng follow your heart. No one can force you here. If you want to go, then go. If you don't want to go, then stay. I will take care of you." Mei Mao gently flapped her fan. Feng directly held Yin Nuashing's arm. This seemed to be the best answer. Then, "Distinguished guests of the Sky Phoenix clan, please." Yin Nuashing smiled silently. There was not much emotion on his handsome face. If Feng really went to the Sky Phoenix clan, then something was wrong. Mei Mao's eyes flashed coldly, but she quickly concealed it. She said calmly, "Leaving Miss Feng by your side is really harming her. You can't even give her anything. The cultivation of the human race and the demon race are completely different." Oh, hearing this, Yin Nuashing, Yuan Shi, Yao Hua, Shui Gu, and the others all laughed disdainfully. Dozens of pairs of eyes glowed as they all looked up. "The cultivation of the demon race? Are you sure you were talking to us about resources? Or is there no one to guide her? What about demon kings? What about demon emperors? I can even find a demon emperor to be her teacher. If Feng says she doesn't want to leave today, then no one can take her away. Could it be that you want to kidnap Feng?" Seeing that everyone who had been quiet suddenly became interested and looked at them with ridicule, their soul-stirring eyes made the hearts of the woman and the others tremble slightly. Even the two god kings were no exception. At this moment, everyone finally revealed their extraordinary temperament. They all had extraordinary backgrounds and were on good terms with each other. Feng was one of the 4 ancient divine beasts, the phoenix. She was an existence comparable to a god. As long as they wanted to, they could go back and ask any elder, and a god emperor would jump out. "Oh, by the way, Feng, and I have a soul contract." Yin Nuashing knocked on his forehead, and a scarlet-pink flame symbol flickered between his eyebrows. Then, "Distinguished guests of the Heavenly Phoenix clan, please leave. Don't think about it every day. Everything depends on fate. If you want to be friends, Why don't you restrain your temperament one day? It won't be too late to talk about it then. Yin Nuashing waved his hand again, ordering them to leave for the second time. I guess you must be thinking about who these impudent humans are. Go ahead and ask around. If you can't find out anything, then it's our loss. Yuanshi said indifferently. The noble woman clenched her fists tightly. Staring at Yin Nuashing, Mei Mao was a little unhappy. However, just as Yuanshi said, she couldn't act recklessly before finding out the ins and outs of this group of people. She could only sigh and said, now that the God realm is in chaos, we won't be the only ones to come out of the demon realm. There will be others coming to find us. I hope you can protect her well. Of course. Yin Nuashing nodded with a smile. With his evil spirit eye, he could see that this woman didn't have any evil intentions. She was just unhappy because she couldn't bring Feng back. Chapter 529. After coming out of the pavilion, the woman didn't stay for long. She directly flew away with her people and transmitted her voice to the people behind her. Go, investigate the identity of this group of people. Keep a low profile. Maybe they are not to be trifled with. And of course, but young miss, are we going to let them go just like that? I'm sure that the phoenix bloodline in that woman's body is very pure. She might even be a great demon with a noble phoenix bloodline. The young man behind her frowned and couldn't help but say, what else can we do? Fight with them? Let's not talk about Feng air suppressing our bloodline. That group of people, although they're only at the 7th or 8th rank, you didn't see the eyes of the man at the head. You will know when you look into his eyes. The woman sighed and shook her head. If they could fight, they would have done it already. What was the point of negotiating? They could have just captured Feng Air and brought her back. Moreover, what if they really come from some big faction? Regardless of whether we succeed or not, we will still incur the hatred of the faction behind them. Now that the divine world is in chaos, the divine world is not our main territory. The demon world is far away in the divine land. Distant water can't put out a nearby fire. Don't cause trouble. The woman's cold voice warned. Understood. The few of them nodded and then returned to a courtyard. Not long after they landed, a few more figures rushed out and flew in all directions. The same scene happened in the pavilion. After those people left, Feng Air leaned on Yun Nuashing's shoulder and fell asleep. However, they didn't say anything too special. They were natives of the divine world. How could they be suppressed by people from other places? I didn't expect that the demon world would appear one step ahead of time. The demon world is also about to appear. This time, the divine world might really be in big trouble. Yuanshi received some information from the Jade Slip and understood a little bit. The human race, demon race, and monster race. These three races are enemies, but there might be a situation where the demon world and demon world join hands to fight against the divine world. The human race only has one race, but the demon race and the demon race have countless races. This time, there are really tens of thousands of races. I don't know if it's good or bad that we're caught up in such an era. The entrance to the demon world is in a primitive mountain in the southern plains, not far from the Golden Forest. According to this calculation, could the demon world be in the northern wilderness or the western regions? No matter how you look at it, this is already a direct attack. Yao Hua and the others couldn't help but sigh. Even they, who had always been lazy, felt a sense of urgency. If it's the demon world, they'll show up as a whole. If they show up in the northern wasteland, they'll take over the entire northern wasteland or half of the northern wasteland, including the northern ice realm. Yishi said softly. What? Everyone was puzzled. The demon world's last full-scale invasion was at the end of the last era. Roughly 2 billion years ago, there was a small probing invasion 25 million years ago. If you're from the demon world, then you've been conserving your strength for 2 billion years. Yishi said indifferently. Then I think they'll go straight to the god world and start killing. Thunder nodded. But in reality, there are ancient scrolls that point to the beginning of this era, which is the 120th era, when the 4 races of the god world were living in peace. Perhaps things will be different. Yishi waved her wide sleeves. Wait, for races? Yin Nuashing was shocked. Weren't there only 3 races? Of course. the three races were different from the 10,000 races. The three races were just a general name: human, demon, and demon. It could be said that they were the three realms of the god world, the demon world, and the demon world. In the latter two realms, there were many races that were collectively called 10,000 races. Human, demon, and demon. What's the last one? Yuan Shi counted with his fingers. Yishi put down her teacup and sighed. She looked at Yin Nuoxing and said, the god race. Brother Nuo, you can actually be considered one of the god race, although your god spirit blood pulse has not fully awakened, Yishi said softly. Everyone knew he had a god spirit blood pulse, but no one had ever told anyone about it. What shocked Yuan Shi and the others was the fact that there was a god spirit blood pulse. The god race is very unified. Humans with god spirit blood pulse are called god race. Humans and god race are obviously on the same side, but the god race disappeared because of a disaster. They have been gone for 15 years. Then, if a god spirit's family has god spirit blood pulse, does that mean they're all god race? Yuan Shi raised his hand. He was acting like a good student. The super factions today all had god spirits in ancient times, Yishi said. The god spirit blood pulse is very hard to dilute, and it is very overbearing. If a god spirit marries an ordinary human, the child will have the god spirit blood pulse. Over time, the child will be eroded and changed by the god spirit blood pulse. It will become a normal god spirit blood pulse, but it will not be the same as the god spirit. It will change the other half of a human blood pulse into a god spirit blood pulse. It is very hard to dilute a god spirit blood pulse, Yishi said. Even if a god spirit's family marries ordinary humans for generations, even if it is passed down for 10,000 or 10,000 generations, the god spirit blood pulse will still be there forever. Then, Yuan Shi wanted to say something. Yishi sighed. When it reaches a certain limit, the god spirit blood pulse is very hard to change. Ordinary blood pulses will be changed. Ordinary blood pulses will cover up the god spirit blood pulse. This process is done slowly, generation after generation. One day, the god spirit blood pulse is completely covered. Only a weak effect is left. When that happens, the god spirit blood pulse will become a better blood pulse than ordinary blood pulses. There was a way to unlock a god spirit blood pulse, but that method disappeared in the river of time. Yishi paused. She pointed at everyone there and said, that means you all may have a hidden god spirit blood pulse, but you cannot unlock it. That requires a special method. The only one who is sure to have a god spirit blood pulse and is awakening it is Brother Nuo. What happens if it is completely awakened? Yuan Shi asked. I don't know. Perhaps you can reach that level. Yishi shook her head. She raised her head and looked at the darkening sky. Yin Nuoxing stood up with Fenger in her arms. She looked at everyone and said, let's get some rest. We have to go to the secret area tomorrow. If anything happens, we have to wait until we claim the mountain spirit and earth fire. Everyone nodded and returned to their rooms. After returning to the room, Yin Nuoxing put Fenger on Xian's bed. She sat on the edge of the bed near the balcony. Are you not going to rest? That is not like you. Xian looked at the back of the tired man. He walked over and sat down next to him. I don't know why, but I feel a lot of pressure. Yin Nuoxing nodded. She turned around and looked at Xian. She softly said, you sleep first. I will meditate tonight. Do you want me to create a dream for you? Yin Nuoxing had already told them about the 1,000 Dreams mantra. Can you create a dream for that star field? Xian stuck out her tongue and smiled. Yes, I have already imprinted it when I was cultivating there. Yin Nuoxing nodded. Hearing that, Xian smiled sweetly. Her red lips curled up slightly. She looked both stunning and provocative. Then she lay down next to Fenger, hugged her, and winked at Yin Nuoxing. Yin Nuoxing walked over. She smiled and teased, creating a dream in exchange for a beauty smile. It is worth it. Cheeky. Xian rolled her eyes. Yin Nuoxing leaned over and pressed her forehead against Xian's. The 1,000 Dreams mantra began to operate in her body. The 6-colored wheel between her eyebrows also began to operate. Then, a green energy gushed out and entered Xian's mind. She instantly felt drowsy. Good night. Rubbing her head, Yin Nuashing said with a gentle smile. Xian's Maymao trembled. She nodded and fell asleep. Returning to the balcony, Yin Nuashing gently closed his eyes and sorted out the mess of information in his head. Yishi held her chin and stared at him from the side. Her wine-red eyes were calm and quick-witted. No one knew what was going on in her little head. Yishi's eyes flickered slightly. She stared at the spot between Yin Nuashing's eyebrows. It had become slightly transparent. Through that transparency, she could see a six-colored wheel rotating. On this wheel, there were many tiny talismans floating there. They were shining brightly under the light of the six-colored wheel. The product of the previous experiment. Other than other types, there are other variations. As expected of Brother Nua, you are really capable. Yishi smiled. She turned around and walked towards the bed. Yin Nuashing was left alone outside the balcony. The next morning, someone appeared outside the loft. He then sat cross-legged at the door without making a sound. However, he revealed some of his aura so that others could sense it. Yin Nuashing understood and led the group outside. Young Master Yin, I am under the orders of the Emperor to bring you and your friends to the secret realm. Are you ready? The person who came was a divine underworld expert. He cupped his hands and said to Yin Nuashing and the others, "We have troubled you. Let's set off now." Yin Nuashing also replied, "No need." The divine underworld expert smiled. With a wave of his hand, he led Yin Nuashing and the others and flew out of the mountain range. The divine underworld expert's speed was very fast. Even if he was carrying a group of soy sauce bottles, it only took 10 minutes to go from the mountain range to the depths of the mountain range. Arriving in front of the barrier, the divine underworld expert used his hand to draw a line on his index finger. A trace of blood appeared. Soon after, he drew a very strange symbol on the barrier. It looked like a word, but it was difficult to recognize. After the symbol appeared, the barrier in front of them squirmed slightly. A moment later, a hole about 10 feet in size appeared in front of them. With the help of this small hole, they could see the situation inside. It was completely different from the outside. There are many native demonic beasts and demonic beasts in the secret realm. You must be careful in this trip. There are no restrictions in the secret realm. You can even kill people without a problem. The only restriction is that you can't enter after surpassing the 9th transformation stage. Of course, you won't be expelled after advancing in there, the divine underworld expert said quickly. Many thanks. Yin Nuashing cupped his hands and nodded to the others. Xiaofeng had already entered his soul and wasn't worried about being blocked outside. Send my regards to Senior Mountain. Yin Nuashing was the last to enter and said to the divine underworld expert. The divine underworld expert nodded. With a wave of his hand, the spatial hole slowly closed. Looking from the outside, it was still a quiet forest. However, everyone knew that the inside was already turned upside down. Fourth brother, why are you here too? The divine underworld expert had just closed the door when a voice came from behind, causing him to turn his head. When he saw that the person who spoke was leading a large group of people here, he couldn't help but be startled. Then, he said, "The Emperor asked me to send a few little guys here. I miscalculated the time. If I had known, I would have brought them here in one go." The people that the Emperor ordered to be sent here. When the person and the people behind him heard this, they were a little surprised. Among them, a group of people from the Heavenly Phoenix clan was also here. And let's not talk about it. I have to go back and report. I'll leave his place to you. The divine underworld expert waved his hand and flew back to the group of mountains. The person who came later didn't say much. He did the same action and opened the door. Chapter 530. After entering the silver-blue spatial door, the space in front of them seemed to swirl up into a huge whirlpool. Many images flashed and flowed in front of Yin Nuashing and the others. Those were the things that happened in the secret realm. It was extremely chaotic. There were people killing people to steal treasures, and there were people who were killed while cultivating. The mystic realm was very big, and there were many people inside. 3 batches of people would stay in the mystic realm every year. However, if they had special opportunities, they could continue to stay. There were more people coming in than coming in, so there were also many treasure hunting teams left in the mystic realm. The whirlpool in front of them suddenly shook, throwing Yin Nuashing and the others out. Everyone cried out in panic, and then their hands that were holding each other's hands were broken free, and they were forcibly dragged into the center of the whirlpool. Star Waymark. Yin Nuashing only had time to shout when he was about to be swallowed by the whirlpool. Then, he was swallowed by the huge blue whirlpool. He was not worried, and everyone knew what those words meant. Plop! A crack suddenly opened in space. Then, a black shadow was thrown out of the crack like a piece of trash. It hit a black ancient tree and rolled to the ground. A cold wind blew in the gloomy air, causing Yin Nuashing to shiver violently. His nose twitched, and the disgusting smell of rot and blood rushed into his lungs like a thief. He almost vomited. This is like a rotten corpse that has been exposed to the sun for 180 days, and then some indescribable liquid is poured on it. What the hell is the smell? Yin Nuashing rolled his eyes, resisting the dizziness and nausea as he stood up. He was thrown out of the spatial vortex, and now he still felt a little muddle-headed. After standing up, Yin Nuashing finally had a clear look at this place. This was a cemetery. The atmosphere was gloomy and cold. The whistling wind was like the cries of the dead. It was sorrowful about their deaths, their unfortunate experiences, and their failures. The gloomy sky set off the darkness of this area. The tombstones, ancient trees, the ground, and the sky were all black and gray. The sunken ground not far away had not cracked open. It seemed like a clear river had once flowed there. Now, there was only the darkness of death left here. No one listened to the sorrowful cries of the dead. Resentment surged. Scram! A cold shout rang out in the distance. Soon after, a majestic demonic chi rushed out, accompanied by a series of muffled groans. It seemed that someone had been sent flying by the demonic chi. Yin Nuashing turned around and walked around the side of the small hill. Soon after, she saw many human figures surrounding a huge tombstone. A human figure stood at the front of the tombstone. He was wearing a black cloak. He was not very tall, but he was extremely tall. Waves of dense, demonic chi lingered around him, causing the dark and cold atmosphere to become even colder. Sir, aren't you being too overbearing? We all found this place together, yet you want to take it all for yourself? A young man crawled up from the ground. There was still a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. He seemed to have been slightly injured. Ants should have the awareness of ants. Your value has already been used up. If you don't leave, don't blame me for being impolite. The black figure abruptly turned around and stared at the person on the ground with his black eyes that were filled with a dense demonic aura. A murderous aura emanated from him. You, forget it. Let's go. There's still many places in this secret realm. It's not worth it to lose your life here. The young man jumped up and wanted to resist, but he was pulled back by his companions. They hurriedly advised him. This black-clothed, black-faced, black-eyed fellow was obviously not a good person. It was already good enough that he was able to survive. Let's go. The man directly pulled the young man and soared into the sky. The people behind him followed unwillingly. One of the people at the back glared fiercely at the black-clothed man. Murderous intent surged in his eyes. You dare to have murderous intent towards me. The black-clothed man coldly glanced at him. A majestic, demonic chi once again soared into the sky. He suddenly punched out with his right hand. A black fist mark that was about 10 feet long soared into the sky with a gloomy demonic chi and violently charged towards the man behind him. The black fist mark appeared in front of the man in a flash. It was so fast that no one could react. The man fiercely gritted his teeth. A low roar came from his throat. Both of his fists suddenly shot out. Faint demonic chi formed palm prints that continuously slammed against the fist mark. Chi. The fist mark directly shattered the palm prints that filled the sky and solidly landed on the man's chest. The man violently spat out a mouthful of blood. His body flew backwards and was caught by one of his companions. He stretched out his hand to check the man's pulse. His expression was somewhat gloomy. We will remember this punch. Our skills are not as good as yours. Goodbye. The person who caught the young man at the beginning said in a low voice. He led his men and flew into the distance without looking back. He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, the demonic chi would explode and hurt them again. So, domineering. Watching the group of people gradually disappear, Yun Nuoxing withdrew his gaze from the distance and looked at the black-clothed man. He secretly muttered in his heart. Yun Nuoxing glanced at him. He was not in a hurry to leave this place. He leaned against the ancient tree behind him and looked at the black-clothed man. The black-clothed man with demonic chi came to the huge tombstone behind the small hill with his hands behind his back. He seriously studied it and did not continue to speak. The two of them were at peace. One looked at the person, the other looked at the tombstone. "Have you seen enough?" An ice-cold voice rang out. It was the black-clothed man. With his hands behind his back, he looked at Yun Nuoxing from the corner of his eyes. "You look at yours. I will stand mine." Yun Nuoxing did not even glance at him. He stood where he was. However, he also shifted his gaze away. His spiritual strength merged into the void and explored this place. "I should have said earlier that if you don't leave, I will not be polite." The black-clothed man narrowed his eyes slightly. He turned his ice-cold gaze and finally looked at Yun Nuoxing. Demonic chi surged from his body. Unfamiliar human language. The density of demonic chi far surpasses that of a beginner demonic chi cultivator. "You." Yun Nuoxing turned his gaze in surprise. A smile flashed through his silver-purple eyes. He said, "Could it be that you are from the demonic chi?" Boom! In response to Yun Nuoxing's question, the black-clothed man suddenly stomped his foot on the ground. His body shot towards Yun Nuoxing like a black arrow. A huge palm rapidly condensed on his right hand and slammed towards him. Yun Nuoxing's eyes were smiling. He did not panic and continued to lean against the ancient black tree. A silver-blue light quietly condensed into a barrier in front of him. Bang! The palm violently slammed against the barrier, sending layers of the surrounding floor flying. The withered ancient black tree was also snapped. A huge palm print directly appeared on the ground. However, Yun Nuoxing was still leaning against half of the ancient tree at the center of the palm. She looked at the demonic chi cultivator with a smile. The demonic chi cultivator frowned slightly when he saw that Yun Nuoxing was unharmed. He suddenly took a step back and retreated. The violent wind blew his cloak up, revealing a delicate and handsome face. However, half of his face was covered in black lines. His left eye emitted a cold black light. There was not a single trace of white or eyeball. There was only a black light. Demonic Tyrant Fist. The demonic chi cultivator's hands formed a seal with lightning speed. Waves of demonic chi condensed on his hands. A moment later, a huge black fist condensed on his right hand. He glanced at his right hand that had condensed into a deathly black color. With a thought, his body was pushed into the sky by a surge of demonic chi. After that, the fist violently smashed down. The black fist carried a domineering force. Wherever it passed, even the air was pushed away. A vacuum tunnel was formed in front of the fist. The black fist continued to expand in the sky. In the blink of an eye, it fell from the sky and landed on Yun Nuoxing's head. The violent wind caused his windbreaker to flap loudly. The ground beside him even trembled. However, he continued to smile. Boom! With a muffled sound, a fist print that was hundreds of meters wide appeared on the ground. The ground caved in by a few meters. Cracks that were as thick as a thumb extended outwards. However, at the middle finger of the fist print, there was a half-broken ancient black tree and a shadow leaning against it. There was no change at all. Even the ground around it did not cave in. The demonic chi cultivator's expression froze. His eyes seemed to spit fire as he stared fixedly at Yun Nuoxing below. His heart was filled with killing intent, but he only felt powerless. Yun Nuoxing had maintained the same posture from the beginning to the end. She had a smile on her face. He could not hit her even if he wanted to. He only felt that his lungs were about to explode from anger. "Are you done?" Yun Nuoxing straightened her body and stretched. She looked at the demonic chi cultivator in the sky and smiled. "It's my turn after you're done." The demonic chi cultivator sensed danger the moment he finished speaking. Just as he was about to move his feet, he felt a large hand suddenly patting him on the shoulder. The power contained in the palm caused a drop of cold sweat to roll down the black half of his face. "All right, you've lost. I've just entered the secret realm and need a tour guide. It just so happens that you're a demonic chi cultivator. It'll be more troublesome for you to find a human." Yin Nuoxing laughed softly. The demonic chi cultivator looked at the handsome youth in shock. He looked down in disbelief. The ancient black tree was still there, but there was no one there. However, Yin Nuoxing had appeared behind him. He could be killed in an instant. Come, come, come. Let's sit down and talk slowly." Yin Nuoxing pulled the demonic chi cultivator to the ground, then pressed him down to sit cross-legged. She smiled and said, "Let's start with the basics. Your name, interests, hobbies, what race you're from, why are you here? Tell me everything. I have patience, so I don't mind a long explanation." The demonic chi cultivator's body stiffened. He looked at Yin Nuoxing, who was smiling warmly in front of him. As a member of the demonic chi cultivator, he was born as a demonic chi cultivator. He had spent 50 years strengthening his body, casting his demonic chi, and refining his demonic chi. Although he wasn't a core member of a powerful race, he was still a powerful cultivator. He had just left the demon world and traveled the divine world for 5 years. Yet he was defeated by this extremely young youth. "Damn it, you won't kill me if I don't tell you." Thinking of this, the demonic chi cultivator shuddered and opened his mouth to speak. Wait a moment. Before the male from the Devil Clan could reveal everything, Yin Nuoxing raised his hand and stopped him, causing black lines to appear on his face. Before he could close his mouth, he saw an extremely thick pillar of starlight suddenly erupt from the body of the young man in front of him. It shot straight into the sky, tearing apart the black sky. It could be clearly seen from thousands of miles away. The extremely dense energy caused the male from the Devil Clan to be dumbstruck, and fear involuntarily rose in his heart. The power of the stars shot into the sky and condensed into a huge star beacon. After 10 minutes, Yin Nuoxing stopped and waved her hand. She smiled and said, "Please begin your speech." The demonic chi cultivator's heart was in chaos. Chapter 531. The gigantic pillar of starlight shot up into the sky, allowing countless people within a radius of 10,000 miles to see it clearly. Xian and the others were no exception. Although everyone was alone, they all rushed towards the gigantic pillar of starlight. No matter what, they had to gather together first. Let's go and take a look. Maybe some great treasure has appeared. It might be a high-grade magic weapon. Maybe it's a semi-divine tool. Along the way, Xian heard the most talk about how everyone believed that there was some kind of treasure unearthed there. It seemed that many people were flying in that direction, which made her feel a little helpless. It seemed that there would be some trouble to meet up with them. On Yin Nuoxing's side, after catching the demon man, she began to interrogate him. She wanted to get some information not only about the divine flame, but also about the demon race. She didn't know anything about this race. The race I'm from is a very ordinary race, the Sky Demon race. The territory that we rule is only 100,000 miles. The demon man's eyes flickered as he stammered. When you want to hide something, at least do a good job on the surface. By the way, I can see through your heart. I can tell if you're lying or not. If I find out that you're lying. Yin Nuoxing twirled a silver needle in her hand and looked at the man in front of her with a smile that wasn't a smile. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly threw the silver needle back. The small needle directly pierced the gigantic tombstone. The two were completely disproportionate in size, but the tombstone and the small hill suddenly shattered. You probably don't want to see this. Yin Nuoxing smiled brightly, but her forehead was a little dark. The demon man was so scared that his snot was about to flow out. He hurriedly nodded and almost swore to prove that he wouldn't hide anything. How big is the demon world? What's the distribution of forces inside? How strong are they? How many races are there? Are there any upper-class demons, nobles, or royalty? Why are you here? Yin Nuashing asked in one breath. I don't know how big the demon world is, but according to the information left behind by some seniors, the demon world might be bigger than the god realm. But in the past, the demon race only had a piece of black land. But after years of civil war and invasion of the god realm, the entire demon world was torn apart. Now it's all floating islands. Plus, it's constantly developing, so it might be bigger than the god realm. But that's for the entire demon world. If it's separated, there's no place that's bigger than the god realm. And in the demon world, a transcendent force or race would rule over a part of the demon world. The biggest part of the demon world is the demon world, and its territory is as wide as 1,000,000,000,000 li. Moreover, these areas aren't grouped together, but are all floating islands of various sizes. In the demon world, the strong are respected. Whoever you want to take over, you just have to defeat or kill them to replace them. Therefore, the whole demon world has a martial spirit, and wars happen frequently. In terms of races, there are a few demon god clans that have given birth to gods, and many high-level demon clans. Among the demon god clans, the most famous ones are known by the whole demon world: the six-winged divine demon clan, the soul demon clan, the blood demon clan, the firmament demon clan, and the eternal demon god clan. Our Sky Demon Clan is just a subsidiary of the Firmament Demon Clan. There are also some demon god clans that keep a low profile. I'm in a remote corner of the demon world, so I don't know much about them. As for why we're here, the god realm is the place where all the gods became gods. Not to mention the demon race and the human race. Even the demon race and people from other star fields yearn for it. It's a sacred place. When a male demon said this, he straightened his back a little. Becoming a god was the greatest wish of all living beings in the god realm. Is there no demon king or demon god that everyone respects? Yin Nuashing asked. No. This is also the reason why the demon race is so chaotic. Moreover, this time's invasion, there are some demon clans that don't agree with starting a war. They think that all the races should live together as equals. However, more of them want to invade and kill the human race. This is also due to the accumulated hatred from history. The male demon said in a low voice, "Who don't agree with starting a war? Who are the ones that want to be beaten?" Yin Nuashing asked bluntly. The male demon almost spat out a mouthful of water. His face kept twitching. This guy was really fierce. So his classification of the demon race was only those that didn't want to start a war and those that wanted to be beaten. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll know when the demon monarchs arrive. Do you have any information about the six-winged demon race? For example, what they cultivate, and do they have any secret techniques? Yin Nuashing asked again. The term six-winged demon race was a secret technique that was commonly used by the demon race. However, it had been lost for a long time. Only God knew when he would habitually use it one day. Would the demon race bring him back to the clan and torture him? The six-winged divine demon race is a member of a six-winged demon god. I'm not sure about the specifics of their cultivation. The heavenly demon race is in the heavenly south, while the heavenly demon race is in the earthly north. They are completely unrelated to each other. Only their reputation has spread here. The male demon shook his head. Yin Nuashing wrinkled his nose and snorted softly. This caused the demon to tremble all over and break out in cold sweat. After asking a few more questions and confirming that this guy had nothing to hide, Yin Nuashing could only sigh softly. He had barely figured out what kind of place the demon world was. Wasn't it just a place where a group of drunken hooligans occupied a territory in the middle of the night? Hearing this, the male demon finally couldn't help but cough. His cheeks twitched uncontrollably. How many demon monarchs in the demon race could stir up a storm with a wave of their hands? In the end, they were dismissed by the description of a drunken hooligan. Chi. The sound of wind breaking came from afar. The two of them raised their heads and turned towards the source of the sound. Then, they saw a dense mass of black dots appearing from the distant horizon and flying towards their direction. The only thing that isn't lacking in this world is people who just want to join in the fun. Seeing the dense crowd, Yin Nuashing shook his head helplessly. He released the star Waymark only to gather Zian and the others. He didn't expect that he would also call over some extra people. Those people must have thought that some treasure had appeared, right? How long have you been in the secret realm? Do you know where there are fewer people? Yin Nuashing turned his head and looked at the male demon. It's been 4 months. If you want to talk about places with fewer people, besides the nearest place where the group of great demons reside, there are a few places that are further away. The male demon thought for a while and said, "The place where the great demons reside? Okay, take me there now." Yin Nuashing nodded. A jade slip appeared in his hand, and he sent a message. Then he grabbed the male beside him and rushed into the distance, leaving a faint golden light in the sky. In the distant sky, Zian suddenly took out the jade slip. After receiving the message, Mei Mao flickered slightly. She looked at the faint golden mark in the sky and sighed. Her delicate body shook slightly, and her speed increased a little. When the people who came here saw a gloomy graveyard with more than a dozen corpses lying there, their expressions changed slightly. The star Waymark had disappeared long ago, and even the golden mark had disappeared when the crowd arrived. For a moment, the crowd was leaderless. Unwilling to give up, the crowd landed on the graveyard and dug 3 feet into the ground, turning the entire graveyard upside down. In the sky, hundreds of miles away, a golden light suddenly flickered and appeared. Then, the golden light receded, and 2 figures emerged from it and landed on the mountain peak below. Not long after the 2 people landed, the sound of rushing wind could be heard in the distance. It was Zian and the others. When they saw that there was an additional person beside Yin Nuashing, they couldn't help but be surprised. They had only separated for a short while, but they had made friends so quickly. "Can I go now?" Seeing the group of people coming over, especially when he felt that each of their auras was much stronger than his, the male demon's face immediately turned pale. He only wanted to escape immediately. "Where can I find a guide if I leave?" Yin Nuashing glanced at him. "You still want to imprison me?" The male demon's expression changed greatly. "Don't make it sound so bad. It's not too late to walk 2 rounds before leaving." Yin Nuashing fiercely slapped him, causing him to see stars. He felt extremely sullen in his heart, and could only curse himself for being unlucky to have met this ancestor. This is a member of the demon clan. Seeing Zian and the others land, Yin Nuashing pointed at him and laughed. Hearing this, Yuan Shi and the others' eyes lit up. They looked as if they wanted to dissect him. The male demon was a little dizzy. He was a dignified and noble member of the demon clan, but he was actually being looked at as if he was an object. After telling everyone about the news that they had just received, Yao Hua asked the male demon to tell them about the situation in the secret realm. After that, Yao Hua and the others directly pressed him to the ground and searched his body. They found a bunch of inexplicable magic weapons and scrolls, but they threw them aside without even looking at them. Demon King's Cave? Netherworld King Expert? What are you talking about? Yin Nuashing squatted down and looked at the humiliated male demon. She couldn't help but ask while he was being searched. "It's here, damn. Men shouldn't touch each other. Don't touch me." The male demon was angry and resentful after being searched, but his demon aura was sealed and he couldn't flare up. He could only finish his sentence in humiliation. "It's in the Great Demon Mountain Forest. There's a restriction. Don't tell me you want to trick us into the mountain and let the beast tear us apart." Yin Nuashing said with a smile that didn't look like a smile. "That's not true." The male demon's eyes flickered and he gritted his teeth. "It's under that mountain. It's up to you whether to believe it or not." After saying that, he pointed at a place with his chin. There was a mountain peak that pierced through the clouds, and the peak couldn't be seen. Under the devilish torture of Yuan Shi and the others, the demon race man finished his business. Seeing this, Yao Hua took out a sturdy iron chain and tied him up like a dumpling. Then, he placed a few layers of seals on him before clapping his hands. "Won't you suffocate him by tying him up like this? Do you want to leave a gap for him to breathe?" Yin Nuashing looked at the mummy with pity and couldn't help but ask. "No need, no need. The seal can be undone in 10 hours. After the seal is undone, there's still a demon sealing chain. There are many of these metal chains. They're specially used to bind the people of the demon race. As long as it's suppressed, it can even bind a divine underworld expert. When the time comes, I'll get 1,000 chains for you. Yao Hua grinned. Yin Nuoxing observed a moment of silence for the male demon and said, I wish you good luck. We'll be leaving first. The male demon was tied up and couldn't even speak. He wriggled on the ground like a worm. At this moment, he really felt like crying. 10 hours and the addition of the demon's sealing chain. This mountain range was filled with demonic beasts and demonic beasts. He was afraid that he would be swallowed into their stomachs along with the chains. Not long after, Yin Nuoxing and the others arrived at the foot of the mountain peak dozens of miles away. Not far from here, there was a lake filled with red liquid. Multicolored light submerged the entire forest. Thin smoke lingered in the air. It was like a paradise. However, in that beautiful place, there were piles of corpses. There wasn't a trace of blood. All of them died silently, causing this sacred place to be filled with an evil feeling. That place is empty. It's just for decoration. Yin Nuoxing used her evil spirit eye to see the colorful lake clearly and said, There's poisonous gas. In any case, it's not a good place. At the foot of the mountain peak, there was a cave entrance. There was a mysterious light flowing through it. Under the ground, a huge dragon vein ran across it. Dragon chi gushed out and submerged this place. It was as if a layer of gauze was draped over it. Walking into it was like walking on clouds. Chapter 532. The cave was surrounded by a few huge rocks, as if it had been dug out by someone. The terrain 10 meters around the cave did not match the terrain 10 meters away. There were even cracks on the ground that were covered, as if they had been forcefully inlaid here by someone. It's so quiet. No one has been here. Yin Nuoxing sensed the surrounding situation. Other than the large number of corpses in front of the lake, there were no signs of life, nor were there any footprints. It seemed that this place had just appeared not too long ago. Shall we go in and take a look? Yuanshi raised his eyebrows, pointed at the cave, and said. Yin Nuoxing nodded, waved his hand, and walked towards the cave. The cave was not very large. It was only 20 feet tall and was able to allow 3 people to walk side by side. Although there was a faint fog lingering around it, this place was unusually dry. The steaming dragon aura pounced on their bodies, causing everyone to feel extremely comfortable. The blood in their bodies began to flow swiftly as they greedily absorbed the essence. After walking a few dozen meters into the cave, an ancient stone door abruptly appeared in front of them, blocking the entrance to the cave. There were many runes engraved on the stone door, as well as some imprints that form a hole. Every once in a while, they could see a dim light flickering on the stone door. Seeing the door, Yishi's eyebrows lightly knitted together, and a reminiscing expression appeared on her face, as if she had seen it somewhere before. Yin Nuoxing reached out his hand to gently touch the ancient stone door, wiping away the layers of dust on the surface, revealing the runes even more clearly. There were also some ancient words on it, but he could not understand them. Opening his evil spirit eye, Yin Nuoxing saw the runes and imprints light up in his eyes. After observing for a while, he understood what to do. A large array appeared in his hand, and he imprinted it into the stone door. Ka! It was as if a mechanism had been activated. After the formation entered the stone door, the runes and markings on the stone door lit up. A moment later, a heavy sound came from the stone door, shaking off a cloud of sand and dust from the ceiling. Then, the sand and dust slowly shrank into the stone walls on both sides. The evil spirit eye is a cheat. Even if you don't understand it, you can solve it. Seeing this, Yishi couldn't help but sigh, her tone filled with envy. However, Yin Nuoxing still hadn't finished cultivating, and a portion of the evil spirit eye's cultivation content was still locked in his mind, so he hadn't passed it on to her. Wait here for a moment. I'll go in and take a look. Her evil spirit eye saw that there were many glowing things inside. They were all arrays, charms, or runic markings. Yin Nuoxing planned to go in and take a look. Be careful. Come back if you can't handle it, Xian said softly. May Mouse stared at him. Yes. Yin Nuashing nodded. With a flash, she charged into the cave behind the stone door. With every step she took, a formation slowly expanded and enveloped the entire tunnel. It removed some of the things hidden in the walls and illuminated the cave. He should be fine, right? Everyone looked at the tunnel covered in formations and couldn't help but wipe their sweat. A formation with every step. Just how high was his attainment in formations? Looks like Big Brother Nua's year of cultivation has already brought his attainments in formations to an extremely high level. Now, he should be able to weave deity-level formations more easily. Yishi said softly in her heart. Seeing Yun Nuashing's attainments in formations getting higher and higher, she was naturally very happy. Within the tunnel, there were bursts of immortal light. Dense dragon chi rose from the ground and flooded the entire tunnel. It was as if they were walking in clouds. After walking for a short distance, they arrived at a white flight of stairs. Below the stairs was a spacious area that looked like a stone platform. There were 5 flights of stairs in several directions around the stone platform. Including the one that Yun Nuashing was currently on, there were 6. At the top of the stairs, there was still a cave entrance. However, at the bottom of the stairs, there was a circle of darkness. A circle had been hollowed out to isolate the stone platform. Even with her evil spirit eye, Yun Nuashing couldn't see how deep it was. The footsteps covered in formations landed on the white jade stairs. Formation after formation spread out, sticking to the stairs and spreading to the stone walls below. When the footsteps landed in the center of the stone platform, Yun Nuashing sent a transmission for everyone to come in. Then, she began to examine this strange place. The back of the stairs was made of white jade. The other 5 stairs were made of 5 different colors. From left to right, they were red, purple, black, green, and yellow. The platform was quiet, and the 5 stone steps that were emitting a faint light were also emitting a faint light quietly. It was so quiet that Yun Nuashing could hear his own heartbeat. It was not until a gust of wind came from behind, and Ziyin and the others walked over that the silence here was broken. "The door is closed," Ziyin hurriedly said as soon as he came in. "Closed? It's fine. We can open it after we go out." Yun Nuashing was slightly startled. However, she didn't mind. She could just open it after closing it. 5 colors. Where do you want to go? Yun Nuashing pointed at the 5 stairs, looked at everyone, and said with a smile, "Black is your representative color. Let's go to the black one first." Yuanshi smiled. It didn't matter. It was the same no matter where they went. Yun Nuashing shrugged. Actually, compared to the black one, she wanted to go to the purple one first. However, she didn't say anything. It was just a matter of order. Looking at the black stairs, Yun Nuashing took a step forward. As usual, she created a formation with every step. Her spiritual force and mental strength were very boundless. She didn't have the slightest worry that she would run out. Everyone was speechless when they saw that she seemed to have inexhaustible energy. However, they had no choice but to follow her. The flowing mist and draconic aura disappeared after entering the black passage. However, this place was much brighter. Yun Nuashing used the light element to bring everyone into the depths of the cave. Not long after, everyone rushed out of the passage. The space in their line of sight suddenly widened by dozens of times. Outside the cave, they were connected to a vast underground cave. It was at least 300 meters tall. The most shocking thing was that at the end of their line of sight, there was a huge altar. Is this the place where a ceremony is being held? Yun Nuashing and the others were a little shocked. The altar was very big. They could see it from far away. It was as big as a small mountain. There was a path under their feet that led straight to the altar. Many things were placed on both sides of the path. They saw a field full of unknown plants. The color of the field was suffused with a black light. As for the plants, they were emitting a black light. They were very rich in vitality. These medicinal ingredients have grown for who knows how many years. In this place, no wonder the draconic aura couldn't come up. It turned out that they were all gathered in this field. Yun Nuashing couldn't help but gasp. Yishi took small steps and ran towards the medicinal field. She approached the black plant and extended her small hand. She touched it lightly. She instantly understood. This medicinal ingredient has a history of 1,000,000 years. PFFF. Yin and the others spat out a mouthful of water. A medicinal ingredient with a history of 1,000,000 years. Just one stalk could help refine a saint or even a peerless pill. Even if it wasn't refined, it could extend one's lifespan by hundreds of thousands of years. That's not right. This medicinal ingredient should have already been extinct. Yishi frowned. I have a prescription that needs this medicinal ingredient. If it's refined, it will definitely be a saint pill. However, the core medicinal ingredient of this pill, the demonic dragon vine, has already been extinct since ancient times. How can there be a demonic dragon vine that has grown for 1,000,000 years here? Yishi frowned. Her small face was full of doubt. Who cares? Let's put it away first. If we sell this ancient medicinal ingredient, we can buy a city. Yuanshi's eyes lit up. It was a medicinal ingredient that had grown for 1,000,000 years, and it was also extinct. Its value was beyond precious. Don't. We can't use it now. If we keep it for nourishment, it can still grow. Who knows? It might even grow into a divine medicine. It won't be too late to harvest it when it can be put to use in the future. Yishi hurriedly waved her small hand. Then, should we move the entire field away? Yuanshi asked. Yishi gritted her teeth. She shook her head and said, although my spiritual world has become an evolved world, it hasn't been forged into a real world by me. Foreign plants won't take root and grow in it. Is there anything? Yishi seemed to be a little anxious. However, she saw Yin Nuashing waving at her. She couldn't help but be startled. She hurriedly ran back. She raised her head and asked doubtfully, Brother Nuo? Yin Nuashing smiled. With a flip of her right hand, a small emerald mountain wrapped in a red crystal appeared on her palm. This was the Godhead weapon core of the Azure Flame Meteor. It contained a world inside. It could even merge with other regions. Last time, she used this to take away 2 regions in the Tana's Water God Temple. This, Yishi, who used to be an underworld emperor, was even more sensitive to this thing. She could feel the enormous power contained in this thing. It was so powerful that it made her divine soul tremble. Yun Nuashing waved her hand. A world suddenly appeared in front of everyone. However, this world was only 100 zhong wide halo. As soon as this world appeared, it was smashed downwards by Yun Nuashing. It smashed into the 100-meter long and wide medicinal field. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Just when they thought they would see the medicinal field being smashed, they saw the halo wrap around the medicinal field. Then, with a sudden pull, the entire medicinal field was uprooted, along with a large piece of land, and taken back into the red crystal. Could this be a realm power stone? Qin Yin and the others saw this for the first time. They couldn't help but ask in astonishment. What's that? Yin Nuashing turned around and asked doubtfully. This was a Godhead weapon core, but he obviously hadn't heard of a realm power stone. A realm power stone contains a chaotic space that hasn't been opened yet. With a thought, the realm power will spread out. It can take an entire region into the crystal. Qin Yin explained softly. However, the success rate of an alchemist refining a realm power stone is extremely low. As a result, realm power stones are extremely expensive on the market. When Yin Nuashing heard this, he opened his mouth slightly and laughed bitterly. Then, he shook his head and said, I don't know either. I found it by accident one day. But according to what you said, it should be after putting away the medicinal field. Yin Nuashing directly turned her gaze towards the altar. The altar was divided into 4 levels. A flight of stairs led from the center to the very top of the altar. At the top of the altar, there were 2 stone pillars that stood upright. The stone pillars were engraved with strange birds and beasts, like 2 totems. An altar. A black altar. Why would an altar be placed here in this dark dwelling? Yin Nuashing could not help but mutter inside. She felt more or less frightened. However, she was still thinking about something else. The black stairs led to a black altar. Could there be several other altars in other places? Chapter 533. The 100-meter-tall black altar was as tall as the cave. It was tightly pressed against the mountain wall, and two long pillars were even inserted into the rocks at the top. At first glance, it was just a black stone, and it was impossible to tell that it had 4 levels. Unlike the other altars that were solemn and dignified, this black altar only gave Yin Nuoxing and the others a gloomy feeling. Over a dozen pairs of footsteps staggered up and down the stairs, and a series of slow and heavy footsteps sounded. Yi Shi, who had just stepped onto the altar, felt her heart inexplicably thump. Her little hand reflexively grabbed onto Yin Nuoxing's windbreaker, causing his footsteps to stop. Everyone else also stopped and followed his line of sight to look at the former. They saw Yi Shi using her sleeve to grab onto Yin Nuoxing, and their gazes were somewhat puzzled as they looked at the dark altar. "It's nothing. Let's go." Seeing that everyone was looking over, Yi Shi shook her head. After speaking, she walked around Yin Nuoxing and walked in front. Everyone was also a little confused, but they didn't ask much and directly followed her. After walking halfway, there was a staircase that was as high as their knees. Everyone could only step up. Yi Shi jumped into Yin Nuoxing's arms. Facing the indescribably tall staircase, with her height, she still had to climb it. There was nothing at the top of the altar except for 2 slender pillars and a circular platform. Other than that, there was nothing else. Turning around and looking down from the altar, one could overlook the entire cave. Other than the dugout medicinal field, there was nothing else worth seeing here. "Little star," Ziyin called out softly. Ziyin softly called out. Everyone turned their heads and saw her pointing at a place with her slender finger. That was the direction of the pillar on the left side of the altar. Everyone quickly turned their heads to look at her. At first glance, there was nothing, but Yin Nuoxing's expression changed slightly. Her expression stiffened. There was a person sitting cross-legged under the pillar. There was no aura at all. That person was also dressed in black and blended in with the altar. If one didn't pay attention, they wouldn't be able to see it. Their skin is all black. Could they be from the demon race? Yuanxi was astonished. This was a person who had already passed away many years ago. His skin and face were all black, and he looked like a powerful god of the devil race. He had died many years ago, but his body was still intact. The inside of the evil spirit, I made Yin Nuoxing's hair stand on end. Looking at the skeleton, she was even more certain that this cave had existed for at least 10 million years. The skeleton that was a mixture of black jade and gold indicated that this person was at least a god emperor expert. Adding the layout of this cave, if there were no accidents, this person should be the owner of this cave. However, would a god emperor expert pass away in a place like this? An emperor god expert, if there were no accidents, could live for at least 1 trillion years. What's more, those with strong life source could extend their lifespan greatly. It wouldn't be difficult for them to live for 1 or 2 eras. There's a god emperor expert who passed away here. He must have existed for many years. Hearing Yin Nuoxing's words, Yuanxi couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Could this be a god emperor cave? However, why was there only 1 herb field? Could it be that the other things were left in the other 4 places? Boom! A soft rumble came from within the cave. The altar beneath their feet shook slightly, causing everyone's expression to change slightly. More than 10 pairs of eyes wandered around. Finally, all of them were fixed on the 2 giant pillars. The 2 stone pillars that had been silent for an unknown number of years lit up at this moment. Rays of light spiraled up from the bottom of the stone pillars, flowing through the images of birds and beasts and rune markings. Finally, they connected directly to the top. The 2 stone pillars lit up completely. Then, rays of light shot out from the 2 stone pillars and entangled with each other. In the center of the altar, a huge circle was formed. It was a picture. The picture was divided into 5 areas. In each area, there was an altar. The 5 altars were the same color as the 5 stairs that Yin Nuoxing and the others had seen: red, purple, black, green, and yellow. After the 5 altars appeared, 5 different colors of energy gathered from afar. They gathered in the center of the altars like a whirlpool. Then the 5 altars seemed to come alive. They lit up with brilliant light. A crystal appeared in the center of the top of each altar. The scene changed to a spacious area. Each of the 5 types of crystals emitted a beam of light. Finally, the light gathered in the middle of the 5 altars. After that, a boundless palace floated in the sky. It was majestic and solemn, like the palace of an ancient god. It had the aura of divine authority that the 5 of them could shake. God's Spirit Palace? Or God Emperor Palace? Everyone's eyes froze. They stared at the illusory palace in the picture. Even though it wasn't real, it still gave them a terrifying pressure. Just the illusory palace alone seemed to be able to pierce through space. The power of death. As everyone stared at the picture, a low voice suddenly rumbled in the sky above the altar. Then, everyone's expression changed. Yin Nuashing and Yi Shi looked at each other. The power of death? However, before they could recover from their shock, Yi Shi's expression changed abruptly. An enormous suction force had descended upon her, and the extraordinary pressure caused her to be unable to resist at all. She felt like her soul was about to be sucked out by this terrifying suction force. Little Shi, Yin Nuashing's expression changed drastically. Seeing the pain on Yi Shi's face, the Netherworld Ruins sword appeared in her hand in an instant. Swoosh! However, before Yin Nuashing could do anything, the suction force suddenly increased several times. It pulled out a huge amount of black energy from Yi Shi's body. It turned into a black whirlwind and finally merged with the circular platform on the altar. Yin Nuashing was shocked. After the black energy was pulled out of Yi Shi's body, the latter's pretty face turned pale. Her small body collapsed weakly. The light element brought him to her side in a flash. He picked her up and placed his palm on Yi Shi's chest. After sensing it slightly, his expression changed and he breathed a sigh of relief. What's wrong? What's wrong? What happened? Yuan Shi and the others' expressions changed slightly. From the sound to Yi Shi's collapse, the whole process took less than 5 seconds. They didn't even have time to react. Little Shi, how are you? Xian hurriedly rushed over and grabbed Yi Shi's wrist. A strange expression flashed across her pretty face as she examined her. She's fine. It's just that her energy of death has been sucked dry. Everything else is fine. Her mind suffered a little from a forceful extraction of her energy of death, but it's nothing serious. She just fainted. Yin Nuashing shook his head gently. His pale face slowly recovered, but there was a hint of self-blame in his eyes. Little Shi was just 5 meters away from him, but something like this had happened. Boom! In the sky outside, there seemed to be an extremely terrifying sound of thunder. It was as if millions of lightning dragons were roaring in the clouds. It shook the entire cave, and the ground began to shake. Gravel kept falling from the top of the mountain. Yin Nuashing was startled. He turned around and looked at the altar. There, a black crystal was slowly condensing. It was condensed from Yi Shi's death energy. Thinking back to the scene he had just seen, he instantly understood what was going on. Go, let's get out of here first. Gritting her teeth, Yin Nuashing carried Yi Shi. With a roar, she flew down the tunnel they came from. Behind her, everyone screamed and hurriedly followed. When they rushed out of the tunnel and arrived at the platform, Yin Nuashing saw that the other 4 stairs had disappeared. However, she couldn't care less about that at this time. The cave was shaking more and more violently, as if it would collapse at any time. Huge rocks kept falling from the sky, so she could only rush out. She used the most violent method to send the huge door in front of her flying with her sword. She led everyone out of the cave. Before she could stand firm, she saw the gloomy, thunderous sky. In the sky, under the huge dark clouds, a chain of palaces suddenly appeared. They were like lofty divine palaces. They were vast, majestic, solemn, sacred, and inviolable. The palaces seemed to suppress the 9 heavens and the galaxy, causing the space to show signs of exploding. There was also an aura of supremacy descending from the sky. Under this aura, Yin Nuashing and the others felt a little scared. It's that palace. That divine palace. 5 altars. Could it be that the other 4 altars have been activated? Yin Nuashing looked at the palaces in the sky and couldn't help but murmur. This isn't the place we entered. I'm afraid that when we entered the door, or when we stepped on the black stairs, we were already transported to the corresponding location of the black altar. Xian Mei Mao looked around, then looked at Yin Nuashing and said. Yin Nuashing hurriedly glanced around when he heard this, and he couldn't help but be stunned. At this moment, they were standing at the entrance of a cave, and an enormous black altar stood towering on a mountain range behind them. At the top of the altar was a dazzling black crystal, and it was a crystal condensed from all of Yi Shi's death energy. Buzz! Not long after Yin Nuashing and the others came out, the huge black crystal suddenly shot out a thick black light beam, shooting towards the bottom of the palace. And at the same time as this beam of light shot out, Yin Nuashing, with the help of the evil spirit eye, saw 4 other beams of light shooting out from several other places. They streaked across the distant space, and under everyone's nervous gazes, they gathered together. Then, they shot straight into the palace in the sky. As the 5 light pillars entered, the huge projection of the palace gradually solidified under the watchful eyes of everyone in the secret realm. At the same time, an extremely powerful pressure also became extremely strong after a few minutes. Under the intense gazes of everyone, the palace in the sky was no longer illusory. It stood in the sky, and 5-colored light flowed on the golden palace walls. A vast pressure spread throughout the secret realm like an explosive energy wave, causing everyone to bow slightly. Those who were still flying in the sky were violently slapped down from the sky by this pressure, spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. Bang, bang, bang. A terrifying force descended from the sky, causing the surrounding terrain to sink a few meters. The space rippled like water, and cracks as thick as thighs appeared. Those who were weaker were forced to their knees by the pressure, causing cracks to appear on the ground. Buzz! The whirlpool zither rushed out of the heart due to the pressure, and a circle of silver-blue light quickly spread out, enveloping the group of people from Yun Nuo planet. The pressure that was like a huge mountain pressing down on them also disappeared, but pressed down on the barrier of the whirlpool zither, causing the ground at the edge of the barrier to sink. Divine pressure. Yin Nuashing had already experienced this kind of pressure before. Only a pressure of the same level, a pressure of that level, could make the swirling zither automatically jump out to defend itself. We're in big trouble. Did we release something that shouldn't have been released? Yin Nuashing laughed bitterly. Chapter 534. God's Palace. At this moment, it was not only Yin Nuashing and the others who saw it. In the entire mystic realm, all the people and beasts who were suddenly affected by the pressure saw it. At that moment, countless people and beasts who were kneeling on the ground all raised their heads with difficulty and stared at the palace in the sky. The mighty palace, coupled with a huge thunderbolt behind it, was extremely impactful. The huge palace made everyone's eyes change slightly. There was fear, awe, yearning, and of course greed. Crack! Far away at the edge of the secret realm, the space barrier suddenly became distorted. A huge vortex appeared on the barrier. Waves of mighty divine power spread out from the palace and collided with the barrier, causing it to shake violently. Then, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the sky. The sound of something shattering shocked everyone. Boom! A dull sound, like a heavy hammer hitting a golden bell, reverberated throughout the secret realm in a few breaths' time and affected the spatial barrier. The crack continued to expand because of the sound wave. It shattered at a speed visible to the naked eye and spread to half of the spatial barrier. Then, boom! The shattered barrier suddenly shattered into pieces in an instant. A divine power swept out like a storm and spread rapidly in all directions. Even in a mountainous city, people felt the pressure. Those who were weaker couldn't resist the divine power and directly knelt on the ground. The secret realm is shattered. Someone has touched the ultimate secret of the secret realm. On the top floor of the palace, the great mountain king and the rest who were leisurely frowned. Their expressions changed as they looked in the direction of the great mountain king. Their eyes flashed with a sharp glint. Who was it that had triggered the ultimate secret of the secret grounds? The 5 altars seemed to lack the power of death. No one should be able to touch the last altar. How can a demon rank cultivator have the power of death if he doesn't control the power of will? The mountain king frowned. This was a special period of time. The mystic realm had been shattered, and the god spirit's palace had descended. That pressure could not be stopped. This time, it was likely that more people would come to the remote areas of the Taiyuan region. Let's go and take a look. Now that the demon world and demon world has appeared, the news can't be hidden. A large number of powerful people will gather there in a few days. Emperor Wanfa slammed the table and formed a seal with his hands. 500,000 years. After guarding it for 500,000 years, is the seal finally broken? The mountainous emperor's eyes were a little dazed as he couldn't help but murmur. Old Fa, hurry up. The soul saber great emperor couldn't help urging. Emperor Wanfa nodded, but soon he was stunned. His hands were forming a seal. He suddenly raised his head and looked as if he had eaten a dead fly. He couldn't help cursing. F***K. It's suppressed. We can only run. The 5 great emperors were stunned and opened their eyes wide. Huh. In a secret territory, on a mountain range in front of the black altar, the group from Yinnuo Star stared at the huge palace in the sky and took a deep breath. They also knew that the secret territory was broken and there would definitely be countless experts descending here. It would not be as simple as the glazed divine dojo. This time, there would definitely be Emperor God experts among the experts who would be dispatched. The experts of the Human Clan, Demon Clan, and Demon Clan would definitely descend there. Let's go first. The barrier of the whirlpool zither can block the pressure from outside. Yin Nuashing gritted her teeth. F***K. I don't know what kind of luck we have. We can find the divine spiritual palace just by walking around. This is too fake, too fake. Yuanshi cursed. Everyone nodded, but they couldn't care less at this time. Yin Nuashing handed Yishi to Xian and held the whirlpool zither with both hands. Under his windbreaker, a string of golden chains shot out from the space and tied everyone up. With a loud roar, everyone jumped down the mountain and ran on the ground. Yuanshi's words made Yin Nuashing's heart tremble slightly. Although it wasn't the time to think about these things, he couldn't help but think about it. It's too coincidental, really too coincidental. Is it just a coincidence? Of course, he quickly stopped thinking about it and just treated it as a coincidence as they ran on the ground. The wind blew on their bodies. As they got closer, the space trembled even more violently. Rumbling sounds kept ringing in their ears. The ground was shaking as if the world was about to be turned upside down. The godly spiritual palace was above the world. Everyone and all living things had to submit to it. Even the Emperor God experts were no exception. This was the prestige of the supreme expert. However, there was a group of people who ignored the so-called dignity and began to run on the ground. Whenever they passed by some people, those people would look at them as if they had seen ghosts. Everyone in this place was suppressed. No one could get up or fly. Why would there be a group of people who were running without the slightest scruple? It seems like everyone is kneeling down. Yuanshi was a little shocked by what he saw along the way. They were protected by the whirlpool zither and couldn't feel the pressure outside. However, when he saw everyone kneeling down, he could roughly guess how terrifying it was outside. The majesty of the divine spiritual palace is unshakable. It cannot be provoked. I have seen it and felt its power. It is a power that makes everything in the world bow down. Yin Nuashing said in a low voice, "Little star, why do you seem unhappy?" Jining looked at him suspiciously as she ran. Yin Nuashing turned his head and met her pitch-black eyes. Then he retracted his gaze and shook his head, saying, "Happy? No, I think it's terrifying. Don't you think so? How long have we been in here? In just 4 hours, we saw the divine spiritual palace. Moreover, we open it with our own hands. We're the only ones running on the ground. We are running without any fear. Yin Nuashing became a little excited towards the end. Yuan Shi and the others trembled when they heard this. There were thousands of experts in the secret realm every year. No one had opened it for 500,000 years. Why did it open when they encountered them? Little Star, don't think too much. The other 4 altars have already been opened by others. Moreover, didn't the altar say that it had the power of death? Ordinary people in the demonic plane don't have the ability to change the power of the elements. It might really be a coincidence, Yuanshi said softly as he patted his shoulder. Yin Nuashing was stunned. His eyebrows furrowed, but he still nodded. Yes. Will the mountain spirit and earth fire be in the divine, spiritual palace? Yin Nuashing murmured in his heart. He didn't need any other opportunities. He just wanted to see the dazzling flame. We're almost there. We can't fly now, and the divine power hasn't been removed. This means that the divine spiritual palace isn't ready for people to enter yet. What should we do? Yao Hua asked anxiously. Yin Nuashing was stunned. He stared blankly for a moment before he thought of this problem. The palace was 3,000 meters tall. How could they go up? Yin Nuashing lowered his head to look at the chains, then at his running feet and the surrounding floor. He suddenly had an idea and shouted, I have a bold idea. Can you keep up with my speed? Put away your bold idea. We can't outrun you. Everyone shuddered violently and waved their hands. What kind of joke was this? How could they outrun him? Even Yao Hua wasn't confident about this. Light element. If you're fast enough, you can even fly for a short period of time. Do you understand what I mean? Yin Nuashing roared. Understood. But I don't want to try. Everyone's faces turned pale. This was really going to cause trouble. There was no need for Yin Nuashing to explain. They already knew what was going on. Remember to carry me in. Hold onto the chains tightly. Don't let go no matter what. The protection of the swirling zither can only be used by your side. If you let go, something will happen. Yin Nuashing ignored everyone's resistance and said directly, This. I didn't write a will. Everyone turned pale with fright. Yin Nuashing rolled his eyes fiercely. The light element slowly condensed towards his feet. Clusters of dense light particles floated around his body and entered his feet. Everyone saw that his feet had turned into a dazzling golden color at this moment. They hurriedly tightened their grip on the chains wrapped around their bodies and steeled their hearts. They were all prepared to die. Seeing that the distance was getting closer and closer, Yin Nuashing could already see the majestic palace after circling around a mountain. Although he was mentally prepared, he still put his hands in his pockets. At this moment, there should have been a mountain range below the palace. However, it was crushed into pieces by the heavenly might. Huge rocks rolled down the mountain and formed a huge crater in the ground. The crater was tens of meters deep, forming a huge basin. Everyone, get to your positions. Yin Nuashing suddenly roared while running. Everyone was so frightened that they hurriedly tightened their grip on the chains. They were also so worried that they tightened their grip on the people around them. Get ready! Yin Nuashing's eyes shone with a golden light. He suddenly ran to the edge of the crater. This place was more than 10,000 meters away from the palace. However, everyone was already prepared. Jump! The light element gathered under his feet suddenly erupted. The terrifying jumping force directly pulled everyone along. He shot forward like a golden cannonball, drawing a dazzling golden line in the sky. Then, he rushed towards the palace in the sky. Boom! Bang! In just a split second, everyone felt a great rise and fall. Weightlessness and supergravity fell on their bodies at the same time. Even their blood seemed to have been thrown to their backs. In that extreme state, they only had time to hug each other, use a barrier to protect their heads, and close their eyes tightly. Then a violent collision suddenly fell on their bodies. They only felt that after experiencing a strong centrifugal force, their internal organs were smashed on their chests by a meteorite, and they were almost thrown out. However, everyone was still holding on to each other. The clanking sound of chains could be heard incessantly. They didn't even know how many clanking sounds could be heard. It seemed like something very heavy had fallen to the ground, and the sound of it collapsing echoed incessantly. Finally, with a muffled groan as the ending point, everyone suddenly opened their eyes and looked around. This was a dazzling palace. Even the roof of the palace was thousands of meters high. They were in a passage, and at a certain point in the passage, there was a round hole in the wall. Rubble fell to the ground, and the wall was filled with cracks. After passing through 4 or 5 holes in the wall, they could see the dark sky outside. Occasionally, there would be a flash of thunder. "We're in." Everyone was stunned. Then they all stood up, still holding the loosened golden chains in their hands. When they felt the cold touch of the chains in their hands, they suddenly thought of something. They turned around and saw Yin Nuashing lying on the ground with her back against the wall. There was still a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. Half of her bright silver-purple hair had turned white. It hurts. Just when everyone thought that Yin Nuashing had fainted and panicked, her limbs trembled slightly. She supported herself with both hands on the ground and turned over with difficulty. She panted heavily twice. "Little star, are you okay?" Xian quickly helped her up. Seeing his handsome face was pale, Mei Mao's heart ached for him. This guy, last time in the Tana's water god's temple, he barged in. Now he barged in here too. Couldn't he take care of himself? Chapter 535. After taking a few deep breaths and resting for a few minutes, Yin Nuashing finally recovered. She hugged the Wulong zither and couldn't help but let out a long sigh. "If I don't plunder some good stuff, I'll be sorry for my crazy rush." Yin Nuashing laughed bitterly at herself, and the others laughed bitterly as well. This was the highest level of self-inflicted evil. However, under such circumstances, if they didn't use that method, they wouldn't have been able to enter. Let's go to the main hall." Yin Nuashing waved her hand fiercely, ignoring her injuries. She had been to the Tana's water god temple and knew that the most precious things were usually placed in the main hall. As for the rest, they didn't lack those things since their background wasn't weak. Outside the mountains, a large group of experts gathered in the forest. They were struggling to make their way towards the secret realm. That terrifying divine power made everyone stop in their tracks. Now, that divine power had already spread to several other cities. This was no longer secret. One person spread to 10, and 10 to 100. The speed at which it spread was as fast as the speed at which a virus spread. The divine aura doesn't allow anyone to blaspheme it. Even if these people enter the boundary of the secret realm, I'm afraid they won't be able to enter. On a mountain peak outside the thousands of mountains, the Mountain King and the other 5 looked up at the majestic palace in the sky. The former couldn't help but sigh. Even they could feel the super terrifying aura when they arrived at this place. Was it left behind by a heavenly god or just a lower god? The Empress couldn't help but sigh. Her beautiful and sacred face was filled with shock. No matter which one it was, as long as it was an expert of that level, everything left behind would be enough to cause a bloodbath in the realm of the gods. Let's wait. We can only wait for the divine aura to dissipate and rush in immediately. However, looking at the situation, the news has already spread to China, right? I'm afraid many of our old friends will come. Emperor Wanfa sighed heavily. He thought he had the geographical advantage and could be the first to enter. I wonder how those kids are doing. It's too much for them to encounter such an incident on their first day here. The Mountain King couldn't help but shake his head. It's fine as long as he's fine. The Empress nodded and felt that she was unlucky. If the Mountain King and the others knew that Yin Nuashing and the others had already entered the palace, what would they think? Boom! In the resplendent palace, terrifying forces erupted. On the golden walls, talismans and formations flickered one after another. However, no matter how powerful these formations were, they were unable to deal with the silver-blue barrier below. They could only watch helplessly as the barrier passed over their heads. How humiliating. This deity is really generous. The formations on the floor are all divine-level, forbidden heavenly seals. If there's a room with a large number of formation scrolls, I'll definitely rob it clean. Yin Nuashing couldn't help but sigh as he supported the barrier of the swirling zither. He wanted to sit down and learn all the formations, but time was limited and he couldn't do so. He didn't know when the divine aura would dissipate. His group was like a small boat in the sea, swaying unsteadily under the power of the formations. He felt sorry for the swirling zither. It could only be used spontaneously 3 times, but he had to use it for defense every time. Every secret chamber and hall left behind by God must contain a lot of treasures, but the most precious treasures are none other than the legacies left behind by the God and the eternal divine weapon. Obtaining either one of them would be enough to establish a superpower. Yuan, she said softly. Look, how about the eternal weapon belong to me? Yin Nuoxing winked at everyone and smiled. How would we dare to disagree with a great demon like you? Yao Hua and the others spread out their hands and joked. Little Star, you're wrong to say that. You were the one who brought us in. To put it bluntly, we're just here to share the spoils. We're all just bystanders. One deity is responsible for more than 10 people. What do you think? Shui Guo also joked. Speaking of which, she still felt like she was in a dream. This was the palace of the deity. There were so many restrictions and powerful formations, but they were walking through it like it was flat ground. That's true. Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes and raised his gaze. He stood outside a certain passageway and looked at the main palace. He couldn't help but frown. The complexity of the vast palace was far beyond his imagination. The winding corridors were like a maze. Moreover, there were times when he even felt that they might have turned back. Buzz. The netherworld ruin sword appeared in his hand. Yin Nuoxing held the whirlpool zither in his left hand and the netherworld ruin sword in his right hand. An extremely terrifying aura exuded from his body. He was like a deity descending to the mortal world, causing the extremely stable space to explode. Even with the help of the netherworld ruin sword and the whirlpool zither, I can't transmit my soul power out. Yin Nuoxing gritted his teeth. As soon as his soul power rushed out of the barrier of the whirlpool zither, it was met with an extremely powerful pressure that caused his mind to tremble violently. His soul was almost shattered. Yin Nuoxing gave up after failing to use his soul power to explore the way. He held the 2 divine weapons and rushed forward like a headless fly. Fortunately, this feeling only lasted for around 20 minutes. The space in front of him suddenly widened, and he rushed forward again. An ancient and majestic hall finally appeared before everyone's eyes. The hall was a brilliant golden color. The passage of countless years had caused the golden color to seem even deeper. An ancient and primordial aura emanated from every stone tile on the floor. It made everyone feel the vicissitudes and tranquility that had been silent for countless years. After stepping into the hall, the divine aura suddenly disappeared. Everyone was shocked. The whirlpool zither in Yin Nuoxing's hand, which was still exuding an unparalleled aura, suddenly quieted down. The hall was extremely spacious. People standing in it were like ants. In the center of the hall, there was a square platform. 4 steps were placed on the golden platform, 2 at the front and 2 at the back. A glorious and noble throne abruptly appeared on the platform. The brilliant colors made it seem as if countless worlds were flowing within the throne. It was as if there was a world stored within. The flowing colors and specks of starlight made it look more like a starry sky. It looked more like a starry sky throne. On the starry sky throne, there were a dozen huge balls of light. The balls of light were suspended in midair, and within the dazzling light, one could vaguely see the existence of weapons. As soon as Yin Nuoxing and the others saw these balls of light, their hearts jumped violently. Were these all eternal weapons? Looking from left to right, in the balls of light, there were broadswords, spears, giant swords, halberds, hammers, giant cauldrons, sacred pagodas, golden bells, golden books, and long staffs. All of them were shining with an extremely brilliant golden light, floating up and down, exuding an extremely powerful aura. Sweeping his gaze across the strange weapons one by one, Yin Nuoxing's eyes widened. There were so many eternal weapons. Were they trying to help him achieve great success in one go? Why do I smell the scent of a conspiracy? A bad feeling emerged in his mind. Yin Nuoxing instantly fell from the clouds of excitement to hell. They were all eternal weapons. Was everything that happened along the way really a coincidence? Yishi's power of death, his light element, and the whirlpool zither. Why did everything seem to be arranged? His gaze finally fell on the starry sky, throne in the center of the hall. His gaze paused on a black star bead on the throne. There, he felt a very strange aura of life. Buzz! The black star bead suddenly trembled. An array of extremely strong light shone out. It was so strong that everyone hurriedly covered their eyes. After a long time, they slowly opened their eyes. When they focused their eyes, a few large words appeared above the dozens of balls of light. This handwriting, it's very ancient. I can't understand it. Yuan Shi and the others looked at the line of words and frowned slightly. This line of words should be ancient. They didn't even know which era it came from. However, when Yin Nuoxing saw this line of words, his whole body trembled. The uneasy guess in his heart became even more firm. Little star? Yuan Shi and the others saw Yin Nuoxing's body tremble slightly and hurriedly called out to him. However, they saw that he was only staring at the line of words. A thought suddenly emerged in their minds, causing them to have goosebumps. Could it be, young Master Yin, do you recognize this line of words? Xueqing couldn't help but ask when she saw Yin Nuoxing's abnormal reaction. Among those present, only the four of them didn't know that Yin Nuoxing could recognize the Kanzai language. Yin Nuoxing clenched his fists, took a deep breath, and nodded. Of course he recognized it. The Kanzai language, the bloodline of the gods, the language of the gods, and the era of mythology. This was something that had always led him forward, guiding him forward, but didn't want him to come in contact with it. It had even been a long time since he had given up on searching for it. Today, it had come knocking on his door again. Reincarnation, destiny, this life, I've been waiting for you for a long time. A gloomy voice came out of Yin Nuoxing's mouth. The moment his voice fell, the line of words in the air suddenly trembled. A terrifying light poured out from the line of ancient words and shone on Yin Nuoxing, causing his body to instantly stiffen. Hearing this, everyone trembled. I've been waiting for you for a long time. This, was it said to Yin Nuoxing? At this moment, the words Yin Nuoxing had just said, the speculation he had made not long ago, repeatedly washed over their minds. If it wasn't said to him, why did the line of words in the air react when Yin Nuoxing said it? The terrifying light poured out and landed on Yin Nuoxing. The seemingly gentle light caused the expressions of Xian and the others to change drastically. It was as if an extremely sharp gaze was staring at them, causing their hearts to tremble violently. Despair involuntarily surged into their hearts. Drops of cold sweat appeared on their foreheads. Everyone resisted the trembling of their hearts and fiercely gritted their teeth. Divine weapons flashed in their hands. Nightmare took a fierce step forward and roared, "Let go of the boss." After this roar, everyone suddenly felt their bodies lighten. Then, the spiritual pressure that filled the sky disappeared without a trace, causing them to heave a sigh of relief. Their gazes were fixed on Yin Nuoxing. The light that enveloped the latter didn't fade away. Buzz! A moment later, the light that enveloped Yin Nuoxing quietly retreated. It turned into a cloud of white mist and floated back to the black pearl on the throne. Yin Nuoxing hurriedly took a step back, as if he had been pardoned. He panted heavily a few times. Sweat poured down his forehead like rain, soaking his clothes. Xian hurriedly supported him. He stretched out his hand and wiped the sweat on his head with his sleeve. There was a hint of concern in Mei Mao's eyes. The black star bead on the throne suddenly trembled gently. The cluster of white light suddenly agglomerated in front of it. Immediately, it turned into a golden-robed human figure in front of everyone's anxious and disbelieving eyes. The human figure stood straight in front of the throne with his back facing everyone. An aura that caused even the world to tremble slowly spread. Reincarnation of 10,000 paths, the will of the heavens. When you ascended, the heavens and earth mourned for your arrival. I have waited for this moment for too long. Chapter 536. 10,000 Reincarnations, Destiny. When you ascend, even the heavens and earth mourn for your arrival. I have been waiting for this moment for too long. The deep voice contained a hint of lament. This sigh seemed to have traveled through time and space and descended from a distant era. The expressions of Yin Nuashing and the others changed slightly. Other than Yin Nuashing, no one else could understand this language. However, they seemed to understand what that person was saying. You have finally come here. The golden figure turned around. His pitch-black eyes seemed to have magic. Those who were looked at by him felt as if they had no secrets and had been seen through with a single glance. They were transparent. Why are you so weak? The golden figure stared straight at Yin Nuashing. A hint of surprise seemed to flash across his eyes, but he quickly concealed it. However, he frowned. Your divinity, your deity position, your soul. I see. The 5 lives Dao fruit has been left in this life. The era of destiny has finally arrived. Our long-cherished wish will finally be fulfilled. Yin Nuashing was shocked and confused when he heard this. He looked at the golden figure uneasily. He did not feel any joy because of the appearance of that person. He only felt a little panicked. He was afraid that this person would remind him of some bad things. Do you know who you are? The deep voice of the golden figure reverberated like a bell, causing Yin Nuashing and the others to tremble slightly. Yin Nuashing gritted his teeth. There was a hint of confusion in his eyes. Who am I? I don't know. Everything happened so inexplicably. Everything seemed to be guided, but everything seemed to be chaotic and unclear. Buzz. The god imprint in his mind suddenly emitted an incomparably bright glow, causing Yin Nuashing, whose mind had almost lost control, to suddenly calm down. The imprint surfaced on his forehead. The bright glow caused everyone to be startled. The golden human figure beside the throne frowned slightly, after which he seemed to have come to a sudden realization and relaxed his frown. The brilliant silver-blue light condensed on Yin Nuashing's body and gradually condensed into a tall figure behind him. His long silver hair fluttered and draped over his shoulders. There was a hint of displeasure on his holy and flawless face. The silver-blue eyes carried a sense of majesty that looked down on the world. He stared at the golden figure and was slightly stunned. Then, he suddenly snorted softly. Don't let Big Brother remember those things. Now is not the time. You should understand the true meaning of this world. Xian Yin's cold voice did not have a trace of emotion, but she seemed to be a little angry. I see. I was reckless. The golden figure did not get angry. He just bowed slightly and cupped his fists. This posture made everyone gasp. He was a deity. How could he bow to a virtual figure? Xian and the others looked at the equally holy and noble virtual figure with some shock in their eyes. They had all heard from Yin Nuashing that there was a powerful figure behind him. Could it be this woman who was as beautiful as a goddess? She must be a deity to be treated so well by the golden figure, and she must be even more powerful than the former. Xian Yin's virtual figure, Mei Mao, glanced at the golden figure and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she lowered her head and saw Yin Nuashing looking up at her. Mei Mao's eyes revealed some longing, but she did not say anything. She raised her head and looked at the golden figure. She said slowly in a cold voice, Since you are here, it must be that person's arrangement. Other than not affecting Big Brother's memory, I think you should know what to do. I understand. The golden figure bowed again and nodded gently. It's too early. It's still too early. It's far from a time for the dusty history to be revealed. Raising her head to look at the sky, Xian Yin's beautiful eyes seemed to have seen through something as she murmured softly. After her voice fell, Xian Yin's tall figure slowly shrank. In just 2 blinks of an eye, she had shrunk to her normal height. Her Mei Mao quietly stared at Yin Nuashing. She did not say anything, but smiled sweetly. Then, she turned into a silver-blue light and entered the mark between Yin Nuashing's eyebrows. As Xian Yin's figure disappeared, the silver-blue light that filled the sky also dissipated into nothingness. Everything quieted down once again. The mark between Yin Nuashing's brows also slowly disappeared under his skin, as if nothing had happened just now. Yin Nuashing was a little bewildered. His eyes kept flickering. When he saw that the figure beside the throne was still staring at him calmly, he felt a little uneasy. However, the mark between his eyebrows kept calming his uneasy emotions. "Come here." The golden figure looked at Yin Nuashing. His gaze gradually became gentler. He sighed softly and waved at him. Yin Nuashing's heart skipped a beat as he looked at him. Although he wanted to leave this place, for some reason, he moved his feet and walked towards a golden platform. Xian saw him walking straight over. Although she wanted to say something, she knew her place and kept her mouth shut. In front of such a powerful person, she did not even have the right to speak. Senior, standing in front of the golden figure, Yin Nuashing was a little flustered. He cupped his fists and saluted. "Hey, hey, hey." When the golden figure saw his action, his expression changed slightly. He seemed to be even more flustered than him. He quickly jumped to the side and stretched out his hands at lightning speed. He straightened Yin Nuashing, who was about to bow. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. "When I saw you set foot here, I thought that it was time for everything to be unraveled. However, since God Ouyang said that it was not time yet, then let those who should be asleep continue to sleep. It was not a coincidence that you were able to set foot here. It was an inevitable process. You set foot here because it was arranged. However, we did not expect this. It was too early. You have not reached the post-God level, so it is not appropriate for you to know these things." The golden figure seemed a little melancholy. His soft words made everyone's heart skip a beat. Yin Nuashing could not help but swallow. What kind of secret was it that he could only know after reaching the post-God level? When the golden figure saw his dull gaze, he could not help but laugh. "I did not expect that I would be able to see such an expression on your face in my lifetime. Interesting." Hearing this, Yin Nuashing suddenly came back to his senses. His handsome face could not help but turn red. What was this? How could he be mocked for being in a daze? The golden figure stretched out his hand and grabbed his wrist. He pulled him to the front of the starry sky throne. Then he suddenly pressed him down on the throne. "Senior, this..." Yin Nuashing had just sat down when he suddenly jumped up as if there were thorns in his buttocks. This was the throne of the gods. How could he? This was originally your seat. The golden figure supported him and pressed him down on the throne again. This made Yin Nuashing feel a little flattered. He felt a little uneasy. He did not know what kind of person he used to be. However, from the memories he had now, he was just a half-demon Yin Nuashing. When he was asked to sit on the throne of the gods, he always felt as if there were thorns in his buttocks. He felt a little uneasy. You once had the whole world. However, for the sake of your long-cherished wish, you did not hesitate to reincarnate. You reincarnated again and again. You rose and fell. You left behind a legend in the realm of the gods. However, you slowly faded away. You should have stood above the 9 heavens and looked down on the whole world. At this point, the golden figure seemed to be a little agitated. His hands could not help but tremble a little. It was as if he was talking about his own affairs. Now that things have come to this, there should be a conclusion to everything. Ouyang God has arranged your affairs. I will not interfere too much. Let things proceed in a casual direction. If you encounter something unbelievable one day, don't be too surprised. Perhaps it's a gift left for you by an old friend. Just like today, you are sitting on this throne, the golden figure said slowly. The golden figure slowly said, causing the uneasiness in Yin Nuashing's heart to gradually disappear. Was it a random direction? However, there were some established facts. Regardless of whether it was Xian Yin or some people he had never met, they had all left something behind on his path forward. This feeling made him not know whether he should be happy or helpless. However, there was one thing that had never changed. He was even more eager to know who he was. We do not need you to experience any difficult life. We do not need you to temper yourself in the mortal world. We do not need you to become famous. We do not need you to care about our affairs. We only need you to wait for the day when you ascend to the divine level and everything will be revealed. Before that, let's just let everything go on peacefully. The golden figure's words touched Yin Nuashing. It will be fine as long as he ascended to the divine level. However, since ancient times, how many people, how many heroes, how many ambitious and ruthless people had been stopped at the divine level? Why were Xian, Yin, and the others so sure that he would be able to ascend to the position of a god? As if he had guessed what Yin Nuoxing was thinking, the golden figure did not respond. He only sighed and waved his hand. He took the black bead and gently rubbed it with his palm. Then he placed it between Yin Nuoxing's eyebrows. The moment the black bead was placed on Yin Nuoxing's forehead, it emitted a terrifying energy. The light on the surface seemed to be flowing like a flowing galaxy. Then, it directly penetrated between Yin Nuoxing's eyebrows, as if it was going to be embedded in his forehead. That terrifying energy descended on his body. It was as if a star was pressing down on his body, causing Yin Nuo's handsome face to show some pain. However, he tightly clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, not letting himself roar out. He is still as proud as before. Just like in the past, he would never scream because he was injured. When the golden figure saw this scene, he sighed and murmured softly. When he saw that the black bead had already melted slightly between Yin Nuoxing's eyebrows, he turned around and stared at Xian and the others with his sharp golden eyes. "You're his friends? Are you willing to accompany him for the rest of your life?" The golden figure's words made the hearts of Yuan Shi and the others tremble. The words, just now, made it difficult for them to calm down. They all knew that Yin Nuoxing was once a super expert, a post-god level expert, and possibly even a god. However, for the sake of his so-called long-cherished wish, he did not hesitate to reincarnate and reincarnate again and again. Xian and the others, who had seen his reincarnation disc, were deeply moved by this. He was once a supreme expert. He was so powerful that even the heavens and earth mourned for him. One day, he will ascend to the starry sky throne that belongs to him. You should know what this means, the golden figure said faintly. Senior. Xian's brows furrowed slightly. Soon after, they relaxed. He bowed slightly and said respectfully, "No matter what little Xingxing's identity was in the past, I only know that he is by our side right now. We are willing to travel with him. Be it now or in the future, it will be the same." When Yuan Shi and the others heard this, they nodded and took a step forward. They all knew that Yin Nuoxing's identity was not simple, but they did not have any ulterior motives. They just felt that he was an interesting person and that it would be fun to follow him. That was why they chose to accompany him. Little star? When the golden figure heard these three words, he was stunned for a moment. Then, he suddenly laughed heartily and could not stop. He patted the starry sky throne, as if he had heard something incredible. Little star, what a little star. That's a good nickname. Very good, I will remember it. When he completely awakens in the future, I will definitely tell him. Haha. The golden figure held his belly and laughed, making Xian and the others feel awkward. Little girl, I see that you seem to have feelings for him. Do you like him? The golden figure laughed for a while. Then his expression suddenly became serious again. He stared at Xian and said softly. Xian's delicate body trembled. There was a great shock in these words, which made her a little nervous. However, she was not afraid. She stubbornly raised her head and looked directly at Yin Nuoxing on the starry sky throne. She nodded and said, "Yes." Seeing that she admitted it, a playful and smiling expression flashed across the golden figure's eyes. He said with a faint smile, "In his life, he has never married or had a family. He believes that feelings are a burden to him. The chains of heart sealed his feelings and allowed him to cultivate at a speed that is 1,000 times faster than normal. However, it made it difficult for all feelings to progress on a deeper level. It also completely sealed off the so-called love. Do you understand?" Hearing this, Xian and Mei Mao's eyes flashed. Yuan Shi and the others could not help but swallow. Sealing off feelings? How could it be like that? No wonder Yin Nuoxing's feelings were so strange. So, this was the reason? If he can succeed, I don't mind. However, those who used to love him will probably fight it out with you. It seems quite interesting when you think about it, the golden figure said to himself. Then, he looked at Yin Nuoxing and smiled inexplicably. This seal has lasted for so many years. After such a long time, there are finally some cracks in it? Then I wish you good luck. The last sentence was naturally directed at Zian. He looked at her with a playful gaze. He did not try to persuade her, nor did he ask her to back down. Sooner or later, he would ascend to the position that belonged to him. He would look down on all living beings and accept their admiration. The people who stood beside him would also accept the worship of all living beings. However, nothing was certain. Presumably, she would fight for it herself. You don't have to ask anything. I'm following the will of Ouyang God. Since I won't tell him, I won't tell you either. I won't force you to do anything. Everything is up to your heart. This is also his principle. Since you have chosen to accompany him, then accompany him well. Watch over him and don't let him act recklessly. You who have accompanied him for a short period of time should know that he is a very reckless guy. The golden figure sighed and said, "He is a peerless sword, and all of you are his scabbard. Do you understand?" Zian and the others nodded, but then they looked at each other. This guy, had he always been so reckless before? Even after reincarnation, he did not restrain himself a little. He, who was born as a god, naturally has his own pride. Reincarnation can erase his obsession and his pride. The him you know may be very peaceful, but that's because he hasn't awakened yet. But one day, he will show it completely. When that time comes, you will need to pull him back from the abyss of destruction. The golden figure talked about some things, but he did not mention Yin Nuashing's former identity. From his tone, Zian and the others felt that Yin Nuashing was a fool who needed others to take care of her. Otherwise, this golden god would not be so long-winded and ask them to take care of her. Chapter 537. The golden figure rambled on and on. Zian and the others listened quietly, gaining a deeper understanding of what kind of person Yin Nuashing was. He was arrogant, noble, and pretentious. He was peaceful, afraid of strangers, burdened with everything, and believed that all living things were equal. He was deep, quiet, lonely, afraid of loneliness, and liked to be alone. He was steady, childish, lively, mischievous, introverted, contradictory, and not what he appeared to be. It feels like he has schizophrenia. Yao Hua couldn't help but murmur. A contradictory personality. If this person didn't have schizophrenia, then he had an eccentric temperament. However, he really felt that the golden figure was right. Yin Nuashing was indeed like that. By the way, that guy's a bottom. The golden figure suddenly laughed sinisterly, causing Yin and the others to be speechless. How could this high and mighty Lord God crack a joke? Well, I'll leave the rest to you. I won't interfere too much. Do you know what happened today? The golden figure glanced at Zian and the others. Understood. For Little Star's sake, we won't tell anyone. Yuanshi nodded and said solemnly. Everyone nodded lightly. They had learned too much today, and they couldn't accept it all in a short time. If others knew, the realm of the gods would be turned upside down. Well, you can leave now. Treat him well in the future. The golden figure nodded and murmured softly. He waved his hand. His voice lingered in their ears. Zian and the others were stunned. In front of them was a black altar surrounded by mountains. It was very quiet. The dark clouds in the sky had disappeared, and so had the magnificent palace. The divine power that filled the world had also disappeared. Holy shit! Outside the mountains, the mountain monarch and the others were dumbfounded. That vast divine might that could crush the heavens and the earth had disappeared without a trace. Even the temple had disappeared with it. What's going on? Could it be a bluff? Heavenly Emperor Myriad Arts and the others were also dumbfounded. At this moment, outside the thousands of mountains, there was a large group of experts waiting on the mountain peaks. There were underworld emperors and god emperors. However, in the blink of an eye, everything had disappeared. That terrifying pressure shouldn't be fake. Let's go and take a look. The Soul Saber Martial Monarch shook his head. He vanished into thin air with a flicker and reappeared a few thousand li away. As he moved, the mountain's sovereign king and the rest followed closely behind. The onlooking experts hurriedly dashed towards the mountains. Clearly, they were unwilling to return empty-handed after making such a trip. After the palace and the sky disappeared, The black altar in the secret realm lost its luster and fell silent, as if it had lost its function. Xian and the others were stunned for a long time before they came back to their senses. At that moment, they didn't even have time to react before they were moved out of the palace without any warning. Little Star. After coming back to her senses, Xian realized that Yun Nuoxing was lying on her arms. She quickly knelt down and placed her flat on her legs, hugging her tightly. Yuan Shi and the others turned to look at Yun Nuoxing, who was sleeping peacefully in Xian's arms. It would be a lie to say that they weren't shocked by what had happened today. However, it wouldn't affect their friendship with Yun Nuoxing. They had put aside their so-called identities to get together. Even if Yun Nuoxing had another identity now, it wouldn't affect their friendship. Deity, Starry Sky, Throne. At this moment, Yi Shi, who was in Qin Yan's arms, finally opened her eyes. Her voice was still slightly weak, but she had already recovered. She had heard every single word that had been said in the palace. Now that she had woken up, there was still a confused look in her eyes. Xian turned around and saw that she was standing steadily on the ground. She seemed a little confused, so she quickly asked, "Xiaoxi, are you okay?" Yi Shi sighed and shook her head. She walked to Yun Nuoxing's side and looked at him in a daze. At this moment, the black star bead was completely embedded between Yun Nuoxing's eyebrows and melted into his skin. His face was already devilishly handsome, and now that there was a black pillar, he had a majestic charm. Oh! While Yi Shi was sizing him up, Yun Nuoxing's eyebrows faintly furrowed as a groggy voice was emitted from his throat. Soon after, everyone saw Yun Nuoxing's eyelids slowly curl up. Within his silver-purple eyes, there was a somewhat lost and sleepy look. Yuan Shi walked over and stopped in front of Yun Nuoxing. He couldn't help but tease. "You're awake, heavenly god Yun?" Yun Nuoxing was still a little confused, but when he heard this, he completely woke up. When he saw Yuan Shi's mischievous smile, he resisted the urge to slap him. Instead, he rolled his eyes and said, "What are you talking about? Then what did the senior say to you?" Yun Nuoxing's handsome face was slightly pale as he supported Xian's weak shoulders. He stood up with difficulty, rubbed the star bead between his eyebrows, and sighed. He said, "You're an idiot." Xian giggled when she heard this. Yun Nuoxing rolled his eyes. His hands were like fierce dragons emerging from the sea as he rubbed Xian's soft hair with all his might. Her pretty face fell a little, and she tried to pull his hands away. However, she wasn't as strong as him, so she could only let him do as he pleased. Mei Mao looked pitiful, and his heart softened when he saw this. "Ahem! Little Star, what's that black bead?" Yuan Shi couldn't help but ask when he saw the two of them fooling around. "This?" Yun Nuoxing looked up, and his eyebrows twitched. He squeezed the black bead, blinked, and said, "This is that palace." "Huh?" Everyone was shocked, and they all stared at Yun Nuoxing with their eyes wide open. However, the latter was tidying Xian's long hair as if nothing had happened. Seeing their jaws drop, he couldn't help but roll his eyes and ask, "What's wrong?" "There's another soul fragment of mine here. It's already fused with it, and there's another memory core in the memory star sea. However, just like the previous one, all the memories are sealed." Yun Nuoxing sighed. Xian and the others all knew about him, so he didn't bother to hide anything. Moreover, he heard some of the words that the golden figure said later, but he didn't intend to hide anything from them. "God of heaven, since you've obtained that palace, shouldn't you take out something good?" Yao Hua poked Yun Nuoxing's stomach with his elbow and grinned. His smirk made everyone speechless. Yun Nuoxing rolled his eyes, slapped him in the face, and pushed him aside. Then he said softly, "There are many things in the palace. Some of the restrictions seem to have been lifted. I'll take you around when I have time." "Hey, I'm just kidding. Why are you so serious? Just throw something to us." Yao Hua came up with a flattering smile on his face. "Forget it if you don't want it." Yun Nuoxing rolled his eyes at him. Yes. When Jin Ying and the others saw this clown, they couldn't help but raise their slender legs, wanting to kick him. However, they put them down bitterly and couldn't help but sigh. After the secret realm disappeared, the suppression also disappeared. Feng couldn't help but jump out and throw herself into Yun Nuoxing's arms. This made him smile bitterly. This girl was already so big, but she was still so clingy to him. Hugging this delicate body, Yin Nuashing sighed and carried Feng on his back. He held her feet with both hands and looked at the sky, lost in thought. Oh no, I forgot something. Just when everyone thought that he would be in a daze for a long time, they suddenly heard him cry out in surprise. He suddenly took out the treasure map, looked at the map, and then let out a strange cry and hurriedly led everyone to fly off into the distance. Everyone was taken aback when he took them away. After thinking for a while, they suddenly realized something. This guy forgot about the mountain spirit and earth fire. Holding the map and flying in the sky, Yin Nuashing and the others saw many experts gather at the place where the palace had been. The basin that had been squeezed out by the divine power had been turned upside down. Among these experts, there were even existences above the emperor of the underworld. Vast energy spread out, causing many people to tremble. Seeing those experts looking at everyone with scrutinizing eyes, Yin Nuashing and the others felt a little guilty. They didn't know what the others would think if they knew that the palace was between his eyebrows. They saw that the red dot on the map was above the swaying flame icon, but below it was a mountain range. It was very quiet, and the fire element wasn't very strong. This made the group a little confused. When they saw Yin Nuashing take out the Netherworld Ruin Sword and was about to dig up the ground, they hurriedly stopped him. Right now, there are many gods in this secret territory. If you act so casually, you'll attract a lot of people. By then, the mountain spirit and earth fire might not be yours anymore. Yuanshi blushed with shame as she pressed down Yin Nuashing's Nethervoid sword. Yin Nuashing thought for a while and seemed to think that it made sense. He put away the Netherworld Ruin sword and then gave 2 orders. Then he took Xian, Feng, and Yishi to search in the mountain range below. The group also scattered in all directions. They busied themselves from the afternoon until sunset. Finally, they found an underground cavern thousands of miles away. They entered from there and wandered around the underground maze. They even took many wrong paths along the way. After taking many twists and turns, they did not know how long they had walked in the underground maze. In the end, it was Shanren who used the earth element to sense the direction. He led them around the underground cavern and came to a place filled with magma. Wow, we ran into the underground magma. Yin Nuashing looked at the red and boiling magma and couldn't help but wipe his sweat. Did they run into hell? 20,000 miles underground. It's dark and completely isolated from the outside world. The strong fire element and the deep earth element mix here. No wonder the divine flame was born. Shanren couldn't help but wipe his sweat. He used the earth element with all his strength to find this place and almost used up all his devil chi. This magma is so big. Do we have to split up to find it? Yuanshi couldn't help but ask. Yin Nuashing shook his head. He took out the swirling zither and placed it in Xian's arms. Then he smiled and said, "You guys can just watch the show." After his voice sounded, his long hair and eyes suddenly lit up. Subsequently, an aura of a sovereign slowly spread out from his body. Light purple and light gray flames entwined and intertwined around his body, causing the already blazing temperature of the place to increase by several times. Chi. Just as Xian and the others hurriedly retreated, the magma suddenly boiled. Even the underground cave shook. Then, a part of the boiling magma suddenly protruded, creating a huge wave of fire that was thousands of feet long. Then, it slammed into the magma. In the magma, a brown scorpion's tail that was thousands of miles long suddenly pierced the mountain wall above, causing the underground cave to shake. Mountain spirit earthly fire is a huge scorpion. Seeing the huge creature rushing out of the magma, Yuan Shi and the others' faces couldn't help but twitch. The divine flame, ranked 30th, already had enough intelligence to transform and even had the power of a god emperor. What kind of monster would the top 30 divine flames be? However, just as they exclaimed, they saw Yin Nuashing charge toward the huge fire scorpion with 2 huge swords. He smashed the 2 swords on the scorpion's head. Then, Both man and scorpion charged into the magma sea, creating huge waves of fire. They even pounced onto the shore and slammed against the silver-blue barrier. There were sizzling sounds as the surrounding mountain walls melted. Does young master you need help? It was the first time Xueqing and the others had seen such a violent scene. Their hearts couldn't help but beat violently. Xian and the others silently turned to look at her. The former patted her shoulder and shook her head. When the gods fight, the mortals retreat. We just have to wait. Xueqing and the others smiled bitterly. Chapter 538. 20,000 miles below the ground, in the raging magma ocean, the dark red, sticky liquid suddenly turned brown. In the surging picture, one could see a brown, gigantic object waving its two enormous claws in the magma ocean, colliding with an insignificant human figure fiercely. Clang! Suddenly, the sound of metal colliding came from the magma, and a 10-meter-long purple-black greatsword swept across the magma, tearing a crack in the magma sea, and then fiercely chopped at the two huge pincers of the colossal creature. A metallic sound suddenly rang out, and the magma here was pushed far away, tearing a huge hole in the magma sea. As the lava receded, a huge brown scorpion that was several thousand kilometers long could be seen. It was surrounded by extremely hot brown flames, and its 8 eyes were the size of lofts. All of them blazed as they stared at the tiny, ant-like silver-purple figure. The tiny figure gave it an extremely terrifying feeling of deterrence, as if it was facing a god. "If you don't listen to me, I'll kill you." Yin Nuoxing laughed loudly. He could sense the vast energy within him. He picked up 2 huge swords that were over a dozen meters long and charged toward the brown scorpion. The 2 huge swords were like 2 mountains as they smashed towards the scorpion. Clang! The huge sword and the 2 mountain-like pincers violently collided, once again pushing the approaching magma far away. The force of the explosion caused both of them to retreat some distance. Although the brown scorpion was huge, its movements were not affected at all. It was extremely fast, and the lava was its territory, so it was not at a disadvantage when it clashed with Yin Nuoxing. Natural moat. World-severing formation. Yin Nuoxing roared out. Several storms of energy suddenly appeared behind him. 5-colored elemental energy and 2 types of divine flames surged towards the storms of energy. Before long, 12 huge flaming swords that were over 30,000 meters long condensed behind him. Destructive energy swept out like a storm. He roared explosively, and then the sword in his hands suddenly slashed downwards. After that, the 12 enormous swords suddenly trembled and slashed down towards the brown scorpion in the most violent manner possible. The scorpion's 8 huge eyes stared at the 12 huge swords as they slashed down like a storm. Even with its huge body, it found it difficult to dodge for a moment. Its pincers actually danced like a human's hands. As it waved its pincers, the entire sea of lava suddenly became violet. Huge pillars of flame burst out from the lava below like a volcanic eruption. As soon as they came into contact with the 12 huge swords, they were split in half by the terrifying power of the swords. Clang! The 12 enormous swords slashed down on the brown scorpion's body with the force of meteorites, causing a series of metallic clangs to ring out. 4 of the swords were clamped down by the pair of pincers, and the scorpion used its body to bear the brunt of the remaining 8 swords. However, it wasn't cut into pieces. It's very tough. Yin Nuoxing roared out. Several dozen divine artifacts flew out. His hands moved, and the 8 swords that were not clamped down suddenly changed directions. They stabbed into the scorpion's body in pairs, completely sealing its movements. Yin Nuoxing waved his hands, and a 1,000-meter-thick golden chain suddenly shot out from the space in front of him. It wrapped around the huge swords and completely wrapped around the scorpion's body. Then it suddenly tightened. Hiss! The brown scorpion let out a furious roar, causing the sea of lava to boil. Huge pillars of lava shot towards Yun Nuashing. However, when the flames collided with Yun Nuashing, a silver-purple halo would light up around him. The flames would disappear when they touched the halo, and Yun Nuashing's aura would become even stronger. He had directly absorbed the energy within the flames. Struggle. Even if you scream yourself hoarse, no one will come to save you. Yun Nuashing roared. His hands formed seals at lightning speed, and a huge cross suddenly flashed out from the light patterns on his body. It rushed towards the scorpion's back. At the same time, Yun Nuashing swung the lunar altar, and the golden chain clamped onto the scorpion's abdomen. Two terrifying energies spread out like the might of the heavens, causing the scorpion to hiss violently. At such a close distance, even a god emperor would be killed by the aura of an eternal divine weapon. 9 heavens spirit subduing array. Yun Nuashing's hands paused, and he suddenly pressed down in the void. Brilliant golden energy surged out from his body. The divine artifacts that were clamped down on the scorpion's body by the golden chain exuded terrifying energy. Accompanied by silver-purple flames, they swarmed forward like hungry wolves, enveloping the entire scorpion. A huge formation covered the scorpion that was thousands of miles long. The moment the formation appeared, the scorpion's strength seemed to have been stripped away. Its huge body relaxed, and the divine artifacts took advantage of this and stuck close to the scorpion's huge body. The light of the formation flowed, extracting the scorpion's energy to seal it, making it extremely weak. Such a huge scorpion. I can't cook it in one pot. With a grin, Yun Nuashing instantly opened his evil spirit eye, causing the world before his eyes to drastically change. Although it was still a brownish-red color, the surroundings of the gigantic scorpion were filled with the energies of various divine artifacts. As for the brownish-brown scorpion, it gradually turned transparent. At the center, a scorpion that was 100 feet in size, with a slightly black color, was powerlessly lying there. Its 8 eyes were filled with brownish-red flames, the luster of its eyes sparkling, giving it quite a bit of intelligence. Clearly, this scorpion already possessed a very high level of intelligence. While Yun Nuashing was observing the little scorpion, the latter seemed to have discovered him as well. Immediately, a ferocious glint surfaced in its 8 eyes as waves of frightening brown flames slowly rose from within its body. Boom! Not long after the terrifying brown flames rose, a terrifying suction force from the outside sucked the flames away, causing the scorpion to lie on the ground again. It was like a dog that had its spinal cord pulled out, paralyzed and unable to move. The 9 heavens soul concealment formation suppressed all objects with energy in the world. Furthermore, it used the object's own energy, which was equivalent to putting a seal on oneself. The more energy it released, the weaker it would be. Who could escape from the seal of one's own energy? Its body is only 100 feet long. Yun Nuashing's colorful eyes blinked, and he chuckled. Although the brown scorpion looked a few thousand miles long, its body was only 100 feet long. The thing that was lying there was actually the core of the earthly fire of the mountain spirit. Yun Nuashing stretched his back and took a step forward, walking into the 9 heavens soul concealment formation. He passed through the huge brown scorpion, and 10 minutes later, he arrived at the core of the earthly fire of the mountain spirit. Hey, big guy, can you talk? Yun Nuashing put his hands on his hips and looked at the huge scorpion as he spoke in an old-fashioned manner. The scorpion's 8 eyes stared fiercely at Yun Nuashing, reflecting his figure. If it wasn't for the 9 heavens soul concealment formation suppressing it, this fellow that dared to walk into its body would definitely be burned to ashes. Can't talk? Your spiritual intelligence is so low, Sai. Yun Nuashing couldn't help but sigh when he saw that the scorpion was only glaring at him fiercely. He seemed to despise the low spiritual intelligence of the earthly fire of the mountain spirit. Yun Nuashing didn't mutter for long. He walked around the huge scorpion, then stood firmly in front of it. He stretched out his hand, raised a finger, and said softly, "The first choice is to preserve your spiritual intelligence and follow me. You won't let down your position of being ranked 30th. Then he raised a second finger and said coldly, "The second choice is to let me destroy your spiritual intelligence." After Yin Nuashing finished speaking, he thought that the scorpion would choose the first choice. However, when he saw the human-like viciousness in its 8 eyes, Yin Nuashing couldn't help but sigh. The 6-colored wheel between his eyebrows spun fiercely, and the 2 flames on his body formed a vortex that spun between his eyebrows. A terrifying spiritual storm swept out and entered the scorpion's mind. A dazzling light rose in this spiritual space like a colorful sun. The surrounding dark red flames that were like blood seemed to have been sucked in by an irresistible and violent force. They surged toward the colorful sun continuously. In just a few blinks of an eye, the dark red sea of fire was completely devoured. In the soul, the sea of fire dissipated. In this soul space, there was only a powerless scorpion and Yin Nuashing left. At this moment, the scorpion's eyes were filled with panic. His body wanted to retreat, but he couldn't move. "Since you are unwilling to follow me, I will forcefully restrain you." Yin Nuashing sighed as he looked at the dark red scorpion, which had revealed a panicked expression. A 6-colored wheel slowly surfaced on his palm. A terrifying suction force continued to pull the scorpion's enormous body over. Within a couple of whizzes, the scorpion was pulled in front of him, after which the scorpion's tail was wrapped around. While the scorpion roared and struggled, it was pulled into the 6-colored wheel in a lightning-like manner. As its entire body approached the 6-colored wheel, the dark red scorpion's enormous body rapidly shrank. In the end, the scorpion's outer appearance finally collapsed. It turned into a dark red fire glow that was sucked into the 6-colored wheel and killed. An unnatural expression flashed across Yin Nuashing's eyes as he looked at the dark red scorpion that disappeared into the 6-colored wheel. However, he quickly hid it, after which he sighed in relief. His body moved, and he withdrew from the spiritual space. Yin Nuashing suddenly opened his eyes the moment he came out of the spiritual sea of fire. His silver-purple eyes immediately looked at the 1,000-feet large brown scorpion in front of him. At this moment, the latter's 8 eyes were completely devoid of life. They had become a little dull. "Why are you sad?" Ziya's voice slowly sounded from the bottom of his heart, as if he had sensed Yin Nuashing's state of mind. Yin Nuashing's heart trembled slightly. However, he didn't show much of a reaction. He only nodded and said, "This is the first time I have erased the intelligence of a divine object. It feels a little unnatural. This kind of competition is a matter of life and death. It's already hard to find someone like you who has walked the third path. However, the essence of it hasn't changed. If you don't destroy it, once it gains strength, it will destroy you." Ziya's gentle voice caused Yin Nuashing's melancholy to recover slightly, after which he let out a long sigh. "I know. It's nothing. I'm just lamenting." Yin Nuashing shook his head and threw those thoughts to the back of his mind. Looking at the 1,000-feet large body in front of him, Yin Nuashing reached out his hand and squeezed. A suction force surged out. The latter turned into an extremely deep dark red flame and slowly flew into his palm. After which, he opened his mouth and swallowed the dark red flame into his stomach. When the dark red flame entered his body, an extremely terrifying heat suddenly spread out from within. Yin Nuashing paid no attention to it and walked out of the huge scorpion's body. Within his body, a purple flame and a light gray flame were like 2 hungry wolves that suppressed the dark red flame. 9 heavens' soul-subduing array. Freeze! As Yin Nuashing walked, his hand seals changed. Brilliant golden light suddenly appeared in his body. He actually used his body as a drawing board to weave a formation, firmly suppressing the dark red flame. Thereafter, he allowed Ziyi to control the 2 flames and pour them onto the formation. Absorb all of this enormous energy. Don't waste it. Walking out of the scorpion's body, Yin Nuashing looked at the huge scorpion that was completely motionless. He sighed softly and changed his hand seals. The dozens of divine weapons unleashed an extremely terrifying suction force. As for the huge scorpion, without the control of the origin flame, it exploded bit by bit and turned into a monstrous brown flame. However, before it could spread out, it was all condensed and compressed by the divine weapons, after which it was fed back into Yin Nuashing's body. In his lower abdomen, a dark red energy crystal slowly formed. Rubbing the black pearl between his eyebrows, Yin Nuashing's gaze became even more strange. This thing was actually nourishing his soul like the divine spiritual imprint. Moreover, it had amplified his spiritual energy by several times. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so easy for him to clash with the mountain spirit and earthly fire soul. Under the suppression of the purple night dark flame, the Een spirit fire, the Godhead, and the 9 heaven spirit concealment formation, the mountain spirit earth fire in his body didn't even have time to unleash any powerful destructive power. It didn't even have the chance to leave behind any last words before it was annihilated and turned into dark red energy. Seeing this scene, Yin Nuashing's heart skipped a beat. Several profound techniques in his body whistled as they circulated. Along with the dark red energy, they rapidly circulated along a specific meridian. In the end, there was even a whistling sound in his body. Even the magma around him was stirred up, as the dark red energy was continuously absorbed and gathered in his lower abdomen. Yin Nuashing moved his long hair in front of his face. He watched helplessly as the color of his long hair slowly changed. From top to bottom, it slowly changed from silver purple to a brilliant purplish-red color. Furthermore, that color actually seemed to be flowing like a purplish-red sky that was slowly spreading out. Even his eyes had turned purplish-red. It's over. I can't show my face anymore. Recalling how Shui Gu had called him a flirtatious B****th, Yin Nuashing's handsome face couldn't help but crumble. How could he show his face in this state? After sitting cross-legged in the magma for 2 hours, Yin Nuashing waited until all the energy had condensed in his lower abdomen and formed a dark red energy crystal. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. This time, he didn't need to fuse or refine too much. Therefore, he didn't have to go into seclusion for too long and ended in just 2 hours. Chapter 539. I haven't refined the enormous energy of a mountain spirit and earthly fire. If I refine a little, I might be able to break through to the demonic rank. No way. Yin Nuashing couldn't help but sigh as she felt the 3 energy crystals formed by the divine flames in her lower abdomen. She realized that something was wrong, and her expression changed slightly. You're only using the mountain spirit and earthly fire to stimulate the evolution of the spiritual divine body. You have a divine weapon, so the divine flames and demonic lightning won't be of much use to you. You just need the enormous spiritual intelligence and divine flames to help the spiritual divine body evolve. Ziye's voice quietly came from her heart. Yin Nuashing nodded. Whether it was collecting the divine flames or demonic lightning, he was only using these spiritual items to help the spiritual divine body evolve. The divine flames weren't of much help to him. To him, the help they provided was far less than in the hands of alchemists and blacksmiths. Yin Nuashing inexplicably thought of something. She looked at the pattern on her chest. Originally, the pattern was left behind by the purple night flame. It was just a light purple seed with a rhizome extending towards the bottom of her body. Now, after absorbing 2 types of divine flames, the rhizome had extended quite a bit, and it even depicted a very bright leaf. The bottom rhizome had already extended to her lower abdomen, and the top rhizome had turned into a purplish-red flower bud at her chest. Wow, this position is a little dangerous. Yin Nuashing's cheeks couldn't help but twitch. The flower bud was about to bloom, and the purplish-red pattern was on her chest. She could see the dazzling pattern when she pulled open her clothes a little. Moreover, the pattern was actually flashing with light, and the rhythm was exactly the same as her heartbeat. Flower bud? This is the manifestation of the spiritual divine body's breakthrough from the small success stage to the middle stage. It's just that your realm isn't there yet. When the flower blooms, it'll be the large success stage. Z also saw it and said softly, Doesn't the large success stage of the spiritual divine body mean that I'll step into the demonic rank? Yin Nuashing couldn't help but ask. In the end, she didn't ignore Ziyi because of the previous incident. That's why your cultivation level can't keep up with the growth of your physique. You'll be stuck when the time comes. Ziyi sneered. Oh. Yin Nuashing nodded in bewilderment. It wasn't that he didn't want to break through, but with his current state, he was afraid that his body wouldn't be able to take it. If I can find something that can suppress the devil chi, I might be able to suppress it. Ziyi knew what he was thinking, so she gave her own suggestion. She had never believed that the light, godly king could help him. The matter of the received spirit godly body would most likely have to be solved by the received spirit godly body itself. For example, Yin Nuashing asked cautiously, Devil lightning. Ziyi softly said 2 words, then continued, Devil lightning and divine flames are both extremely strong spiritual items of heaven and earth in the God realm. They can purify all kinds of filthy things. However, you have 3 divine flames in your body right now, yet the hidden dangers in your body don't seem to have lessened. Perhaps. What happened? Halfway through her sentence, Ziyi suddenly froze. Her cry of surprise stunned Yin Nuashing for a moment. Then his consciousness hurriedly entered his soul. When he opened his eyes, he saw a world of purple flames, light gray flames, and dark red flames. Yin Nuashing appeared in a flash. Seeing Ziyi standing not far away with her eyes wide open, he hurriedly ran over and asked, What's wrong? Seeing him appear in front of her, Ziyi and Mei Mao's eyes flashed with surprise. She reached out her demonic claws towards him, pretending to pull him into her embrace. Yin Nuashing was so frightened that his entire body trembled, and he hurriedly retreated a distance away. You finally dare to appear in front of me. You've been hiding from me for a year. Ziyi softly snorted and retracted her hand, causing Yin Nuashing to let out a dry laugh. The memory of being humiliated last time floated before his eyes, causing goosebumps to appear all over his body. This isn't, but you sigh. A hint of fear appeared on Yin Nuashing's handsome face. He opened his mouth and said a few words, but in the end, he could only sigh. No matter what he said, he felt that something was wrong. All right, I was wrong last time. I'm sorry. I let you take advantage of me. Ziyi smiled and walked to Yin Nuashing's side. Under his uneasy and frightened gaze, she pulled him into her embrace. Her voluptuous body tightly stuck to his body, causing his handsome face to suddenly turn completely red. Her soft red lips lightly touched his lips, and Ziyi giggled as she let him go. Seeing that his entire body was trembling and his handsome face was completely red, she nodded in satisfaction and said with a smile, Just treat it as compensation. A real man can't be so calculative. Her jade-like hand lightly pinched Yin Nuashing's cheek and lightly brushed across his lips, causing his face to become so red that water could be squeezed out. His gaze was slightly evasive, and he didn't dare to look at Ziyi. Calm down first and look ahead. Ziyi shook her head and held Yin Nuashing's hand as they jogged over to Lan Xnr and Feng. Yin Nuashing raised his head and looked in front of Lan Xnr, Feng, and the Netherworld Ruined Sword. His eyes trembled slightly, causing him to be slightly stunned. That place should have been dark and chaotic, but now it had completely disappeared. Brother Nuashing, you're here. When Lan Xnr heard the sound of footsteps, she turned around and saw Ziyi holding Yin Nuashing's hand and rushing over. Mei Mao's serious expression caused Yin Nuashing to feel uneasy. What's wrong? Yin Nuashing ran over to the two of them. Fenger looked at him with great attachment, but at this moment, she didn't show anything. She just stared straight ahead with her Mei Mao, causing him to also look ahead. Then, his pupils slightly narrowed. The darkness in the chaotic sealed area had completely disappeared, but there were still a few thick energy chains revolving around it. In the center of those chains, replacing the darkness, was a dagger. It was a black dagger that was only a foot long. It was deep and restrained, and the black color was like flowing water. It was breathtaking. That was formed by the chaos, and it changed not long ago. Lon Xin, Er's clear voice was very serious. Xing Xing, that thing is very scary. It has its own consciousness. Feng held Yin Nuoxing's hand and said nervously. It changed from such a big thing to such a dagger. Yin Nuoxing couldn't help but swallow his saliva. The dagger gave him a strong sense of uneasiness. Judging from its appearance, it was an ominous object. The black gas that it emitted made his divine consciousness feel suffocated. If the seal broke, he was afraid that he would soon fall into it, just as the few of them were feeling uneasy. The dark dagger trembled slightly. Then, a deep and dark voice seemed to come from the front, causing the few of them to change their expressions. "Thou art my host." The deep and dark voice carried a heavy feeling, causing their minds to tremble when they heard it. "Chaos, right? What do you want?" Yin Nuoxing frowned. This thing had appeared in his soul, and now it made him even more uneasy. He didn't even know why it had chosen him and why it had lodged in his body. After the voice finished speaking, the spiritual sea realm became silent. Yin Nuoxing and the others stared blankly at the black dagger, which was only a foot long. In the sea of fire, it was terrifyingly quiet. "Thou hast no desire. If you want power, come and find me." The low and deep dark voice was like a heavy wooden mallet smashing on his chest, causing Yin Nuoxing's breathing to become sluggish. That low voice actually caused his mind to tremble a little, as though it was tempting him to pick up the dagger. Yin Nuoxing bit his tongue hard and quickly came back to his senses. He turned around, opened his arms, and hugged one person in each arm as he flew away. He only stopped when he was far away from the seal. He put Feng, and the other two down and said softly, "Don't worry about it in the future, and don't need to maintain the seal. If something happens, it will come for me. I don't want to see any of you get hurt. If there is an emergency, go to Xian Yin's God's spiritual imprint. It should be able to isolate chaos. Don't refuse. Listen to me." Seeing that Lon Xin and Feng were a little anxious, Yin Nuoxing stretched out his hands, rubbed their heads, and said softly. Lon Xin bit her red lips with her pearly white teeth. She lowered her head slightly and nodded sullenly. That voice could directly penetrate the seal and affect them. If Hundun really wanted to do something, they would not be able to stop him with their strength. "Don't worry. It should be fine. I won't touch it." Yin Nuoxing smiled and patted their heads. Yin Nuoxing turned his head, looked at Ziyi, and said softly, "Ziyi, if I advance to the demon level, what do you think is the possibility of me falling to the demon level?" Ziyi and the other two's delicate bodies trembled, and they quickly looked away. Mei Mao's eyes flickered. She did not even dare to look at Yin Nuoxing, and her breathing became a little rapid. 80%? Moreover, every time you advance to the next realm, there's an 80% chance of falling to the demon level. Yin Nuoxing smiled, causing Ziyi and the other two's expressions to change slightly. The nether void sword fell from the sky. "You, little star, how did you know?" Su Ming trembled as he floated in front of Yin Nuoxing and could not help but ask. They were so careful when they spoke, and even blocked his senses. Moreover, they had only mentioned it once. How did Yin Nuoxing know? Ziya's delicate body trembled, and she seemed to have thought of something. Mei Mao suddenly turned around, and, as expected, she saw Yin Nuoxing looking at her with a smile. This made her so anxious that she stomped her jade-like legs. Yin Nuoxing patted Ziya's shoulder lightly and said softly, "Ziyi and I are connected mentally. You can know anything about me at any time, and I can naturally know anything about you at any time, as long as you don't hide it. Don't forget, you were the one who planted the imprint here." Yin Nuoxing patted the flower bud on his chest and smiled. "No." Ziyi hurriedly grabbed his arm and fiercely shook her head. I won't allow you to take this risk. Yin Nuashing only smiled when he heard that. Isn't there still a 20% chance of safety? Trust me, it'll be fine. And look, seeing Ziyi so anxious and helpless like a little girl, Yin Nuashing smiled and said, "Feel my aura." Ziyi and Mei Mao's eyes flickered. It was just a thought, and they instantly understood. Mist even condensed in their widened eyes, and Yin Nuashing's heart shook when he saw this. Demon rank. 1 seal. In Yin Nuashing's lower abdomen, the most dazzling energy crystal had turned into a thumb-sized ball. Furthermore, there were extremely small doors 1 centimeter away from the ball. There were a total of 10 large doors and 90 small doors, and all of them were wide open. However, 1 large door and 10 small doors were completely closed and sealed. Once all 10 doors were completely closed, it was time to ascend to the demigod rank. Could it be that just now? Z muttered helplessly. He should have guessed that if he subdued the mountain spirit and earth fire, even if he didn't refine the energy, 1,000th of it would still be unconsciously refined. This was something that couldn't be prevented. Furthermore, Yin Nuashing had been forcefully suppressing his realm, and he had been suppressing it at the demigod rank 9 transformation stage. Sooner or later, he wouldn't be able to suppress it anymore. When that day came, he would directly ascend to the first seal of the demigod rank, and even advance 4 small realms. You can't advance another big realm. There's an 80% chance that you won't be able to withstand the next one. Z shook her head frantically, and her jade-like hands tightly pinched Yin Nuashing's arm. Her fingernails even left a mark on his arm. It was completely different from when she was teasing and serious just now. Ziya's current expression gave him, Feng'er, and the other 2 of fright. Yes, I promise. I will try my best to suppress it. Yin Nuashing smiled and nodded. However, looking at his nonchalant look, Lan Xen and the rest were a little worried. This guy, every time he made a promise, in the end, he would still take risks. Void Underworld, do you have any sealing techniques? Lan Xen couldn't help but send a message to the Void Underworld sword. Mei Mao turned around with a glimmer of hope, but she saw the Void Underworld sword spinning in a circle, which made her feel even more helpless. Chapter 540. After coming out of the soul world, Yin Nuashing suddenly sighed, as if he wanted to turn what he had just seen into a breath of depression and spit it out. That dagger formed from chaos directly facing him made him feel that his soul was trembling. Looking at the dark red and viscous sea of magma, Yin Nuashing clenched his fist. 3 different colored flames spewed out from his body, instantly tearing the magma apart. The sea of magma trembled slightly, as if it had met its master. Yin Nuashing's soul moved slightly. In his perception, there seemed to be something stirring in his mind. He could not help but touch it lightly. Then, he opened his right hand, and a foot-long dagger appeared above his palm. It slowly began to spin. Seeing this thing, Yin Nuashing was so frightened that his hand trembled, and he almost threw the dagger away. After he calmed down, he focused his eyes and observed it. The black dagger was only a foot long, and there were no special patterns on it. It was the most ordinary dagger, but the flowing black color made Yin Nuashing feel uneasy. He wanted to reach out and touch it, but he felt uneasy and did not dare to touch it. Thou hast no desire. If thou desire power, come and find me. That low demonic voice was like a seductive whisper, tempting him to touch the black dagger. Even if he didn't touch it, he would still be driven crazy by the voice as time passed. Forget it, I don't care. That day should not come. Yin Nuashing inexplicably thought that he might need to use this black dagger one day. However, this thought only existed for a moment before it was ruthlessly erased by him. Not even the slightest trace of it would be left behind. 1 demonic rank, and there are 9 large doors outside the crystal body. In front of each large door, there are 10 small doors. Closing 1 door is equivalent to advancing 1 rank. Yin Nuashing looked at the spherical crystal body in his body and could not help but laugh, saying, "Interesting measurement method." Yin Nuashing shook her head and let out a long sigh. Then, she felt a little strange. She seemed to have sighed a lot in the past 2 days. He slapped his head hard and threw all those thoughts out of his mind. He sensed the direction in this magma hole that had been torn open, then rushed towards the top of the magma. The surrounding magma burst and churned, emitting a blazing aura. Xian was sitting cross-legged on the ground at the passageway that Yin Nuoxing and the others had come from. She had entered a state of cultivation, and the silver-blue barrier completely isolated her from the scorching heat. Behind her, the group also sat cross-legged and waited patiently. No one knew how long Yin Nuoxing would take, so they could only use cultivation to pass the time. In the tranquil sea of magma, there were occasional sounds of boiling and exploding. Apart from that, there were no other sounds. 20,000 miles underground, deathly silence was the only sound here. There was no life, no other aura. There was only a dense fire element flowing here. For hours after Yin Nuoxing dived into the sea of magma, Xian and the others suddenly felt an extremely powerful aura rushing up from the bottom of the magma. They hurriedly opened their eyes, and the moment they opened their eyes, the sea of magma in the distance suddenly exploded. A black figure shot out from it, somersaulted in the air, then landed on the magma. Her feet touched the waves of fire below, and 3 flames spiraled behind her, as if the god of fire had descended after rushing up from the bottom of the magma. Yin Nuoxing looked around and finally fixed her gaze on Xian and the others not far away. She smiled slightly, then stepped on the waves of fire and walked over unhurriedly. "Little star, did you succeed?" Xian hurriedly got up and greeted her. Mei Mao was a little surprised when she saw the brown flames behind Yin Nuoxing, but she still chuckled. "Yes, I didn't try to fuse the flames this time, nor did I refine much energy, so I completed it very quickly." Yin Nuoxing nodded. "Phew! 3 divine flames. You dyed your hair again." Yuanqi looked at her and couldn't help but bitterly smile. Her aura had already reached the 1st demon rank. She had surpassed them in an instant, which was a huge blow to him. "Brother Yun, you're walking further and further down the path of a flirtatious slut." Shuige couldn't help but exclaim when she saw the change in Yin Nuoxing's hair and eyes. Her bewitching face was full of shock. Yin Nuoxing was instantly petrified. The group of people ran quickly in the underground cavern and retreated back the way they came. When they arrived at the entrance of the cavern, they couldn't help but cover their eyes when they saw the brilliant and gentle blue moonlight. The underground cavern was extremely dark, and there was no light. It had only been 2 hours, but they felt so uncomfortable when they saw the moonlight again. "What are your plans?" Yin Nuoxing asked Shuige and the others as she blinked after getting used to the moonlight. "A year ago, we wanted to come to the mystic realm to cultivate, but looking at the situation now, I feel that it might be better to go home. Moreover, there are many more powerful gods in the mystic realm. I'm afraid that the great opportunity here won't be ours." Shuige spread her hands and smiled. "Young Master Yin, do you want to take a walk around the Morong family?" Shuiqing smiled and invited Yin Nuoxing. The Morong family is in the northwest of the West region, near the Taiyuan region, right? Yin Nuoxing thought for a moment, then shook her head and said with a smile, "Shuiqing, it's rare for you to invite me, but we're going to the northeast of the Taiyuan region now. If you have any urgent matters, you don't have to worry about us." Shuige nodded and smiled. His handsome face made Yin Nuoxing want to leave a shoe print on it. Shuige then said softly, "All right, we'll go back first. Little star, if you're free, come visit our family. Father and the others will welcome you very much." "Of course." Yin Nuoxing nodded with a smile and said, "Do you need me to give you a ride? Although it's not on the way to Xingming City, it's fine if it's a little detour." "No need. We have the space formation map. If you're busy, you don't have to bother about us." Yufeng smiled and returned Yin Nuoxing's words to her. "All right." Yin Nuoxing spread her hands, but still insisted on sending them off. She led the group and flew towards the mountains. With the current speed of her light element, it could be said that she was chasing the stars and chasing the moon. Moreover, after advancing to the 1st demon rank, Her energy had increased by several dozen times compared to when she was a half-demon rank 9th cycle realm. She didn't have to worry too much about exhausting her energy after using a large amount of light element. Above the clouds, an incomparably vast palace had unknowingly stood there, majestically extending for several thousand li. It was like a small city. The entire palace was golden in color. When the blue moonlight fell on it, it was draped with a thin layer of silver gauze. It was magnificent, like a city of immortals. Is this enough? There's still a lot inside. It's useless to leave them all to me. Yin Nuoxing stood at the entrance of the palace, looking at Xue Qing's group of 4. The moonlight poured down. This place was very close to the sky. The moon had become a background, illuminating the 4 handsome and beautiful faces, especially Xue Qing's and Yu Jing's faces. A thin layer of silver light emitted a holy aura. The 2 of them were so beautiful that it was suffocating. That's enough, brother. Don't bite off more than you can chew. I still haven't digested all the things I've learned in the past year, and I've taken so many things from you. It's quite embarrassing. Xue Gu smiled and shook his head. All right, come find me if you need anything. Yin Nuoxing nodded. Don't worry, I won't be polite with you at that time. Xue Gu nodded solemnly. Since the Golden God had tacitly approved of their existence, he hoped that they could accompany Yin Nuoxing. Combined with the friendship between the 4 of them, he naturally wouldn't hold back. Yin Nuoxing nodded, walked forward, and gave the 4 of them a tight hug. Xue Qing and Yu Jing's faces were red, but they returned the hug slightly. Yin Nuoxing looked at the 2 girls' shy faces with interest and couldn't help but chuckle. Brother, my sister isn't married yet. Do you want to consider it? Xue Gu couldn't help but chuckle when he saw this. He hooked his arm around Yin Nuoxing's neck and whispered, Xue Gu, isn't it a little inappropriate for you to sell your sister like this? Yin Nuoxing was speechless and couldn't help but roll his eyes. Although the 2 of them spoke very softly, Xue Qing, who wasn't far away, still heard them. Her face was so red that it was about to drip water. She was so angry that her delicate body was trembling. She stomped her foot on the ground and scolded angrily. Brother, if you continue to act like this, don't call me your sister in the future. Xue Gu suddenly shrank his head when he heard this voice. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Then, he winked slyly at Yin Nuoxing, causing him to be at a loss for words. Brother is also looking for a good man for you. Look at Brother Yin. He's so handsome. Although he's a little inferior to me in terms of looks, he has unlimited potential. Good fellow. He's the successor of a god. He's a good man. In the future, he'll definitely step on the throne of the starry sky and look down on all living things. Don't you want to consider it? Xue Gu patted his sister's head and laughed loudly. Why didn't we realize that you were so narcissistic? Yin Nuoxing, Xue Qing, and the others widened their eyes in shock. Go to hell. If you want to get married yourself. I haven't thought about this. Xue Qing rolled her eyes fiercely and almost pulled out the silver sword at her waist. Yin Nuoxing smiled. He really felt relaxed when he was with this group of friends. Xue Qing and Mei Mao were stunned when they saw his smile. Under the moonlight, the cold moonlight fell on Yin Nuoxing's devilishly handsome face. Together with the black star pearl between his brows, there was a special charm to him. Those peaceful and tranquil purple-red eyes were also quietly staring at her. Mei Mao was actually a little dazed for a moment. She stared blankly at him, and her heartbeat quickened slightly. However, she suddenly came back to her senses, and her beautiful face flushed red. I am leaving first. You guys take your time. Xue Qing's face was so red that she felt a little dizzy. She hurriedly flew into the distance. When Yu Jing saw this, she smiled at Yin Nuoxing and nodded. Then, she hurriedly chased after her. Take care. Yin Nuoxing waved at the 4 of them and sighed softly in his heart. How long would this farewell be? Little star, we're leaving first. No matter where you meet in the future, no matter what the occasion is, remember to say hello to us. Xue Gu laughed loudly and flew into the distance with Yufeng. She even laughed out loud. Definitely. Yin Nuoxing also shouted with his hands by his mouth. Xue Gu and Yu Feng's laughter came from afar. Under the moonlight, Yin Nuoxing felt a little melancholy as he watched the four of them walk further and further away. In the end, they disappeared. He let out a long sigh. Xian, Feng and Yishi walked past quietly behind him. They didn't come out to say goodbye just now, but everyone was watching from inside. However, they didn't want the scene to be too comical, so they didn't come out after letting Yin Nuoxing and the others say goodbye. Little star, you're showing mercy everywhere. Let's see how you're going to deal with them in the future. Xian and Mei Mao looked at the place where Xue Qing and the others disappeared and couldn't help but shake their heads. I don't think I did anything, right? Yin Nuoxing trembled in shock and looked strangely at Xian, who was standing beside him. Who knows? Xian chuckled. There was a serene smile on her beautiful face. The blue moonlight fell on her body and illuminated her purple clothes, making Yin Nuoxing feel a little absent-minded. Back then, she was also like this in his dream. She wore a snow-white dress and looked like a fairy in his dream. She was so beautiful that it was unreal. She looked at him and smiled at him. Feng jumped onto Yin Nuoxing's back and hooked her arms around Yin Nuoxing's neck. Her lively appearance made the four of them smile. The sadness of parting was diluted by a lot. Chapter 541. The night was beautiful, and the moonlight was alluring. The palace on top of the clouds only appeared for a short while before disappearing. The surroundings were silent, and no one noticed that a palace had appeared on top of the clouds. There's spatial energy fluctuation. The group of people hurried on their way under the moonlight, heading towards Mountainous City at a leisurely pace. Every step they took covered a distance of 1,000 li. The man with the handlebar mustache suddenly raised his head and looked toward a certain direction not far away. His footsteps came to a halt, and so did his 5 companions. Their deep gazes looked towards the direction he was looking at, penetrating through an unknown distance. It's that group of children. One of the middle-aged men in yellow robes smiled gently. He didn't expect that group of children to be here. No wonder we couldn't find my junior brother, even after searching the entire secret realm. It turns out that he has already escaped. The beautiful and sacred woman couldn't help but smile. Under the moonlight, she looked noble and charming. What was that bold idea of yours? The man with the long saber on his back moved his shoulder and asked. The beautiful and sacred woman chuckled and then muttered a few words, causing the expressions of the others to change. What a bad taste. The young man couldn't help but sigh. You've lived for a long time. It's good to play once in a while, but don't treat those children as toys. If they hold a grudge against you, I'll see where you go to cry. The middle-aged man in yellow robes shook his head in disapproval. What do you think of our junior brother's character? The woman rolled her eyes at him and chuckled. I'm not sure, but I heard from those children that I know a little about him. At least he won't hold a grudge so easily. The middle-aged man in yellow robes frowned and said, Then that's it. The woman chuckled softly. With light steps, she turned around and walked towards the place where they sensed the aura. Sigh. This woman still has a childlike innocence. The middle-aged man in yellow robes and the others shook their heads and sighed before quickly following her. Under the cool moonlight, Yin Nuoxing and the others sat on the huge Netheruan sword. They were still cultivating diligently. As for Yin Nuoxing, she sat on the edge of the Netheruan sword. Her feet dangled in the air as she gently swayed back and forth. She stared at the huge moon in the sky with her purplish-red eyes. She was extremely calm and could not help but feel happy. It was as if her mood would improve as long as she could see the moon. He turned around and looked at the others who were cultivating not far away. It was rare that even Feng didn't stick to him and was cultivating diligently. Everyone seemed to be stimulated. The moonlight is so beautiful. It would be even more beautiful if there were 2 moons. Yin Nuoxing turned around and looked at the moon disk. She couldn't help but smile and murmur. She opened her hands and stretched them forward as if she wanted to touch the moon. Yes, the moonlight is so beautiful. A soft laugh was transmitted from behind her. The voice was gentle but it caused Yin Nuoxing's expression to change drastically. This voice had never appeared in her memory. Ugh! Yin Nuoxing was just about to turn around when she felt a delicate hand forcefully cover her mouth. There was also a small hand pressing on her back. A terrifying energy was about to erupt at any time. Yin Nuoxing's eyes shrank when her life gate was suppressed. Her heart slowly sank when she sensed the terrifying energy. The Netherruin's sword wanted to move, but she was connected to Yin Nuoxing's soul. The two of them could communicate directly in their hearts. Therefore, Yin Nuoxing stopped her and did not act rashly. A God Emperor elite wants to kill me. Yin Nuoxing felt her entire body turn cold. She didn't expect that someone would discover their tracks. Moreover, it seemed like it was an enemy, someone from the 12-star palaces, or the Qi family. She hadn't offended any major forces. Only a few major forces would be able to send a God Emperor elite to capture her. What are you trying to do? Yin Nuoxing swallowed her saliva and couldn't help but speak in a trembling voice. A soft laugh that sounded like a silver bell came from behind her. Yin Nuoxing could tell that it was a woman. She wasn't old, or at least she didn't look old. Of course, a God Emperor elite was extremely old. Who knew how old the woman behind her was? I want this little guy to come with me. The woman behind her laughed softly. My friends. Yin Nuoxing's brows trembled slightly, and her breathing became a little rapid. Them? Of course they have to come with you. The woman laughed softly. The hand that was covering Yin Nuoxing's back exerted a little more force. That energy almost seeped into his body. Hearing this, Yin Nuoxing's eyes flashed fiercely. He didn't have any objections to anyone touching him, but he hated it when someone involved his friends. Scram! Yin Nuoxing roared. Her body turned into light particles and disappeared in an instant, causing the woman's hands to miss. Mei Mao trembled slightly and was a little surprised. She couldn't help but ask, Light element? The explosive shout instantly jolted Ziyin and the others awake, and they instantly opened their eyes. However, before they could even react, a silver-blue light suddenly flashed in front of them. In merely an instant, it vanished on the spot. When they opened their eyes once more, they only saw a mountain range, and they didn't know where they'd been teleported to. The nether void sword instantly shrunk from its 100-meter size. Yin Nuoxing grabbed it with her right hand, and the Linghong sword appeared in her left hand. She put her hands together, and the two quickly fused together. 6 wings also spread out in an instant, reaching a size of 60 meters. Terrifying elemental energy condensed around her. The divine sword also broke through the air with a muffled sound of thunder. Who sent you? Holding the huge divine sword in her right hand, Yin Nuoxing's evil spirit eyes suddenly opened. In a breath's time, she had adjusted herself to a boiling state. Seeing this, the woman couldn't help but want to applaud. Little guy, you have many tricks up your sleeve, but you should know that in the face of absolute power, those tricks are useless. The woman covered her mouth and laughed softly. There was a smile and killing intent on her beautiful and sacred face. However, in Yin Nuoxing's eyes, there was only anger. However, there was also some doubt in his heart. Why did he feel like he had seen this woman before? Yin Nuoxing's face was gloomy. Her right hand that was holding the divine sword trembled. All the energy in her body surged into the divine sword like a tide. When the latter received this energy, an extremely destructive energy suddenly appeared under the night sky, causing the space to collapse. Little guy, you're disobedient. Big sister will teach you a good lesson. When the woman felt the energy, she was shocked. Mei Mao's face turned slightly serious. She took a step forward and her figure disappeared. In an instant, she appeared in front of Yin Nuoxing. It was as if the distance between them didn't exist. Buzz! Her jade-like hand suddenly grabbed at Yin Nuoxing. However, before she could touch him, the figure in front of her suddenly turned into a ball of dissipating light particles. She missed. This little guy's speed is so fast. The woman, Mei Mao, was slightly stunned. Yin Nuoxing's figure appeared 1,000 feet away. The divine sword in her hand emitted rolling black energy. It was like two angry dragons entangling with each other. She looked coldly at the woman who was looking over from afar. She raised the divine sword in her hand and pointed it at the latter. An invisible pressure directly froze the space around the woman. Spatial suppression. A formation suddenly appeared beneath the woman's feet, causing her delicate body to tremble violently. A wisp of shock flashed through her beautiful eyes. She had actually been frozen. Of course, Yin Nuashing didn't have the ability to seal an emperor god. However, with the combination of the two divine swords, along with the power of space and the formation, she could temporarily suppress an emperor god for a second. It was only a second, but it was enough. When she felt that the energy in her body was almost depleted, a few runes suddenly exploded from the six-colored roulette in between Yin Nuashing's eyebrows. They turned into rolling energy that surged into her body. Her exhausted body was instantly filled with energy. Moreover, even more energy surged into the divine sword. After sensing the strength of this energy, even that woman's pretty face changed slightly. Even she felt her heart palpitate. How does this little guy know such a powerful Xian skill? In the void, looking at Yin Nuashing, who was 1,000 feet away from the woman, their faces trembled violently. Then, they felt the increasingly violent power of the divine sword in her hand. The man with the handlebar mustache couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat on his forehead and said in a trembling voice, "This little guy can withstand an attack from an eternal weapon with his bare hands and not be injured. He even shattered 3 eternal weapons. What do you think?" The middle-aged man in the yellow robe couldn't help but laugh bitterly. His expression was grave. He thought that if this attack was directed at him, he would probably be seriously injured. "I'll stop him. Luli will most likely be seriously injured after this attack," the young man said hurriedly. He broke through the void and rushed out. The other 4 people couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Boom! A vast aura suddenly soared into the sky, shaking the space to the point that it shattered. The woman suddenly broke through the restraints of the formation, but when she saw that Yin Nuashing had already raised his divine sword, her pretty face couldn't help but turn pale. Netherworld ruins, terminus, that's the end. Just as the divine sword was about to fall, a deep voice came from behind Yin Nuashing. Then, a palm landed on Yin Nuashing's back, causing his expression to change drastically. 2 god emperors. The divine sword in the air that was about to descend fiercely trembled, but in the end, it did not descend. However, a terrifying sword light still shot up into the sky from the few feet of space it had carved out. It shot towards the horizon and even cut space apart. "You put on a good show. However, we don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Come with us. Maybe the patriarch will spare your life on account of your talent." The young god emperor frowned. His heart was in a mess when he said this. He seemed to be in extreme pain and had goosebumps all over his body. Yin Nuashing's tall body stood in the sky. His huge 6 wings were still unfurled, and his purplish-red eyes quietly looked at the woman who was gradually walking over. At this moment, the divine sword in his hands was raised high, and the light it emitted was even more resplendent. The energy it contained was already like a volcano that was about to erupt, and waves of cataclysmic power gushed out, causing terrifying cracks to appear in the space. 2 people? Both of them have come out? Yin Nuashing looked at the smiling woman, then used his soul to look at the young god emperor behind him. The corners of his mouth lifted into an almost cruel smile as he spoke softly. "Be careful." The woman, Mei Mao, shrank back slightly and shouted sharply. The young god emperor's expression changed. He grabbed at her with his large hand. However, there was only a ball of dissipating light elements left. A sense of uneasiness surged into his heart. Netherworld ruins, terminus / 1,000 meters away, Yin Nuashing's figure appeared like a ghost, and the divine sword in his hand fiercely slashed down towards the 2 of them. Then, an extremely brilliant sword light, carrying with it the power to destroy the heavens and the earth, rushed out with a loud bang. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.